Chapter 2236. Although the guard had said that according to the rules, the spirit beasts couldn't go to the upper ridges, but the middle ridges were the spirit beasts' territory. If humans came to the middle ridges, would the spirit beasts let them go? Thinking of this, Lin Yi took a deep breath and prepared to run. But the guard seemed to have seen through Lin Yi's thoughts and said coldly, "Kid, don't even think about running. If you dare to run, I'll kill your female companion first, and then go after you." The guard saw through Lin Yi's fear and directly threatened him. Despicable. Lin Yi spat out 2 words. He didn't think that the guard would see through his plan. But although Lin Yi was unhappy, there was nothing he could do. Regardless of whether the guard was telling the truth or not, Lin Yi didn't dare to try. A man with a small heart is not a gentleman. A man with venom is not a gentleman. The guard said disapprovingly. "I originally wanted to leave your corpse intact, but you've made me lose my patience. Kid, you can go die now." The guard raised his hand and a soft whip appeared in his hand. Weapon. Lin Yi took a deep breath. He had heard that the sky-class martial skills could be used with a weapon, greatly increasing the power. But Lin Yi had never seen it before. He didn't think that the first time he would see it would be here. And before, the guard's attack without any martial skills was already too much for Lin Yi to handle. Although Lin Yi's injuries were mostly healed, he didn't think that this guy would directly take out a weapon. Lin Yi's mouth twitched. His luck was really bad. Ever since he arrived at the Wulonghout Mountains, he had lost again and again. Could it be that his luck was too good before, and his luck had been so good that it had been used up during the Hidden House meeting? Against an Earth-class mid-phase, do I still need a weapon? Lin Yi took a deep breath. The head guard didn't pay attention to Lin Yi. He could see that the boy in front of him was very cunning and wouldn't let go of any opportunity to turn the tables. Since that was the case, he didn't hold back. He suddenly raised the whip, which was suddenly wrapped in a layer of Cyan-Jin Qi, and quickly lashed at Lin Yi. Furious sea raging waves, first style. A majestic aura smashed towards Lin Yi. Lin Yi was suddenly shocked and did not dare to meet it. He carried Sun Jingyi, who was behind him, and operated his inner force cultivation method to protect himself, and Sun Jingyi with his true qi. He quickly turned his feet and dodged to the side. Boom. The whip lashed at the place where Lin Yi had just been standing. The huge force smashed into the cyan brick, and made a loud sound. The cyan brick was also sent flying by the huge force, and it broke into pieces. The original place where the cyan brick had been was now a huge pit. Even though Lin Yi had dodged fast enough, he still staggered from the force of the whip. The clothes on his right arm were torn, and there was a deep cut on his arm, revealing the bone. It was a mess of flesh and blood. Too strong. That was the only thought in Lin Yi's mind. He had already dodged it, and it was under the situation where he was protected by Zhen Qi. But the force of the whip had still caused him to suffer such a serious injury. What if he had been hit by the whip? Perhaps it was as the Great Guardian said. If he had been hit, it would have been a fatal blow, and he would have stayed here forever. Dust filled the air. Feeling that his right arm had almost lost all feeling, Lin Yi's face turned serious. A heaven-rank early-stage expert, such a terrifying ability. It was unknown how many times stronger than Lin Yi's Earth-rank middle stage. This made Lin Yi feel even more bitter in his heart. You dodged fast. The Great Guardian sneered. That move just now, he did not aim at all. It was just a random attack. He did not care about it, and only said mockingly, "This old man will also play a game with you. This old man will whip you 5 times. If you can block it, then this old man will let you go. How about it?" The corner of Lin Yi's mouth twitched. This old thing obviously wanted to play a monkey. That was only the first style of martial arts. With the activation of his heaven-rank early-stage strength and the soft whip weapon, it had already released a shocking power. If this guy used his strongest move, would he still be alive? Not to mention 5 moves, Lin Yi might not be able to dodge another one. Alright. It's a deal. Although he knew that this old thing was playing with him, at this time, he had no choice but to bite the bullet. Don't die too quickly, that would be too boring. The Great Guardian retracted his soft whip and raised his head to look at Lin Yi with a sinister smile. His right hand suddenly raised again, his body moved slightly, and he shouted, "Raging waves of the sea, 11th style." Fuck. Hearing the great guardians shout, Lin was so angry that he almost spat out blood. Just now it was the first style, and now it was the 11th style? One had to know that the strongest martial arts of a heaven-rank early-stage expert was probably the 11th style. This guy clearly wanted to take his life in one move. Subconsciously, the first thought that came to Lin Yi's mind was to run. This thing couldn't be blocked head-on. If he did, he would definitely die. Therefore, Lin Yi once again used that miraculous footwork. However, he didn't expect that this time, the great guardian seemed to want to kill him. That soft whip was like a maggot in a tarsal bone. No matter where Lin Yi dodged, it would sweep there, not giving Lin Yi any chance to hide. Looking at the sharp killing intent in the great guardian's eyes, Lin Yi was infuriated. Old thing. Wait for this young master to make a comeback. I'll kill you first. In this battle, Lin Yi was too aggrieved. Fighting with someone who was several times stronger than him, the strength of both sides was simply unequal. Even if Lin Yi used all his skills, he couldn't do anything to the guy in front of him. However, Lin Yi had no room to turn back at this time. He desperately picked up Sun Jingyi and forcefully threw her into the air. He didn't care where he could throw Sun Jingyi to. He couldn't dodge this whip, so he could only take it head-on. He estimated that if he took a hit, he wouldn't die immediately. But it was hard to say for Sun Jingyi. Even if she didn't die after being whipped, she wouldn't be any better. Bang! Just at the moment when Lin Yi threw Sun Jingyi, the whip also hit his face and directly hit Lin Yi's chest. Lin Yi felt a sweetness in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. He staggered back 2 steps and fell to the ground with a pale face. The power of this whip was too strong. Even though Lin Yi had used enough true qi to protect his body, he already felt that all the ribs in his chest were broken, and more than half of his internal organs were injured. If he hadn't used the momentum of landing to divert some of the force to the green bricks under his feet, his injuries would probably have been more serious. Even so, the green bricks under Lin Yi's feet had already been shattered by Lin Yi. Chapter 2237. It was just that the injury was too serious and couldn't be healed in a short time. If it wasn't for the fact that Lin Yi was still hanging on to his last breath, any other practitioner would have died in an instant. Fortunately, Lin Yi had the Jade Space as a rescue kit, allowing Lin Yi to heal his injuries at any time. Not dead. The guard was a little surprised. This Earth-class mid-stage master in front of him really made him look at him in a new light. Whether it was the strength of his moves or the endurance of his injuries, he was much stronger than other masters of the same level. However, the more this kind of person was, the heavier the guard's killing intent was. Once this person grew up, he would definitely hold a grudge and seek revenge. There seemed to be a few levels between Earth-class mid-stage and Heaven-class early stage, but Lin Yi was such a young Earth-class mid-stage. Who could guarantee that he wouldn't step into Heaven-class within a few years? Once Lin Yi stepped into Heaven-class, then the guard's advantage would be gone. If Lin Yi could still fight above his level, then the guard's life would be taken sooner or later. So in order to prevent this situation from happening, the guard decided to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. No matter what, he had to kill Lin Yi. Sun Jingyi looked at the miserable Lin Yi on the ground. Her heart felt like it was smashed by a sledgehammer. Heartache, regret. She really regretted coming here. She shouldn't have explored her parents' secret. She shouldn't have brought Lin Yi along. In order to protect her, he didn't hesitate to lose his life. How could she repay him? However, Sun Jingyi knew that if Lin Yi died, the next one would be her. Forget it, I can't repay you in this life, but in the next life, I will definitely repay you. In the next life, I will be your lover, completely your lover. Crystal tears flowed out of Sun Jingyi's eyes. She looked at the dying Lin Yi on the ground, but there was nothing she could do. Of course not dead. Lin Yi spat out a mouthful of blood. Old thing, which sect are you from? Let me die. Let me die in peace. I'll find you for revenge in my next life. What? Trying to get information out of me? The head protector was stunned. He did not expect Lin Yi to ask such a question before he died. Of course. Otherwise, I won't be able to die in peace. Lin Yi was simply stalling for time. His internal injuries were too severe, so Lin Yi had to seize the time to recover. I'm sorry, but you can only die with everlasting regret. Even at this moment, the Great Protector still couldn't reveal the power behind him. Although it wasn't a big secret on a certain level, there were some things that were tacitly understood. All right, then I won't ask anymore. What exactly is this thing that you want to snatch? What's it used for? Lin Yi changed the topic. Oh, you don't know? The head guard was stunned. He hadn't expected Lin Yi's questions to be so baffling. Do I need to ask you if I already know? Lin Yi retorted. If you don't know, then how do you know about this place? Who sent you here? The Great Protector was puzzled. He had originally thought that Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi would definitely know what that treasure was, and what it was used for. Who would have thought that they didn't know? It was said that when a person was on the verge of death, his words were always kind. No matter how stupid Lin Yi was, he knew that he didn't have long to live. Although he wasn't dead yet, it was only a matter of time before he died. Did that mean that Lin Yi really didn't know what that thing was used for? We have a map. We came here according to the map, Lin Yi said straightforwardly. So that's how it is. Where did the map come from? A sharp light flashed in the eyes of the head guard. It was better not to know. The fewer people who knew the true use of this treasure, the better. Originally, he thought that the two people in front of him had some relationship with the two people they were looking for. The head guard kept Sun Jingyi alive, because he was afraid that the matter of the treasure would spread. He wanted to let the higher-ups investigate the relationship between Sun Jingyi and the two people they were looking for, and how many people knew about the treasure. But now it seemed that it was no longer necessary. Since these two people didn't know, then they could die. Once they were dead, the secret of the treasure would not be revealed to the outside world. Tell me first, what's in that box? Lin Yi asked. Bargaining with me? The head guard smiled coldly. If that's the case, you don't need to say anything. Go to hell. After saying that, the head guard raised the whip in his right hand again. A strong green true qi once again filled the whip's body. The next moment, the whip burst out and swept towards Lin Yi's head. Lin Yi's heart trembled. If this whip swept down and smashed his head, even the art of dragon mastery wouldn't be able to repair it. He was shocked and terrified. He subconsciously rolled to the side, and his whole person was extremely embarrassed. However, the whip seemed to have eyes. It swept in the direction that Lin Yi rolled to. Seeing that the whip was about to hit Lin Yi, Sun Jingyi closed her eyes subconsciously. But then she heard a loud clang. It was the sound of two weapons colliding. A black iron rod blocked the whip. When the whip and rod collided, there was a huge energy collision. A red and a green true qi suddenly exploded at the point where the rod and rod met. The strong energy field directly shook Lin Yi a few meters away. However, it was only the aftermath of the collision of the two true qi that affected Lin Yi. It didn't hurt Lin Yi much. Instead, with the push of the aftermath, Lin Yi was pushed away from the center of the collision. This old man gave you the map. What do you want? An old man with disheveled hair and tattered clothes carried a black iron rod in his hand. He stood majestically at the place where Lin Yi was lying. He looked at the head guard with a cold smile. The aura on his body was stronger than the head guard's. Master. Lin Yi, who had a new lease of life, saw the old man in front of him who saved his life at a critical moment. He couldn't help but call out these two words. Lear, quickly take Yuer and hide. Leave this to Master. This old man was the heaven-ranked weirdo that Lin Yi met after the Ice Palace trial. He didn't expect to meet him here. Moreover, it was the most dangerous moment. Lin Yi let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, he was a little worried. Although this cheap master of his had the strength of the peak late stage of heaven-ranked, he didn't seem to be very smart. He wouldn't run away after a few hits, right? Then he and Sun Jingyi would be in danger again. Hearing the way the weirdo called Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi, a trace of doubt flashed across the head guard's eyes. Li, Yuer, weren't these the names of those two people? Was this old thing's mental illness acting up again? Or were these two juniors in front of him the two people who had disguised themselves? Chapter 2238. Just when things were about to succeed, someone suddenly appeared out of nowhere. This old thing occasionally appeared in the upper range of the Wulonghout mountain range. It wasn't that the Great Guardian didn't know about him, but he knew him quite well. This was because the heaven-ranked eccentric was also one of the people he was responsible for monitoring. However, this old thing was crazy and his strength was terrifying. He had reached the peak of the world's martial arts, the peak of the heaven-ranked late stage. Therefore, the great guardian wouldn't easily provoke him and let him walk around the mountain range. In any case, this person was stupid. Although he had the strength of the peak of the heaven-ranked late stage, he didn't have much vigilance. He didn't notice that he was being monitored by the great guardian. As for finding a few more people to capture this old thing, it wasn't that the great guardian didn't think about it. The key was that this guy's martial arts were very strong. Not to mention that it would be troublesome to capture him. Even if he was captured, he probably wouldn't be able to get any information out of him. This person's words were incoherent and didn't have a single point. It was better to let him wander around in the mountain range. If that thing was really hidden by him, maybe one day he would remember it and find it. Then the great guardian would be able to sit back and enjoy the fruits of his labor. However, this guy's appearance today wasn't a good time. This made the great guardian very depressed. This old thing clearly wanted to stand up for Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi, forcing the great guardian to have no choice but to confront him head-on. Although the great guardian was the direct disciple of that place and was stronger than ordinary experts of the same level, this old thing's strength was several levels higher than his, making him feel uncertain. Old thing, this has nothing to do with you. What are you doing here? The great guardian asked. Master will help you take revenge. You take and leave first. There's a cave over there. Wait for me there. The heaven-ranked eccentric said and laughed strangely. He raised the black iron rod in his hand and smashed it towards the great guardian. A huge amount of true qi wrapped around the black iron rod and smashed it straight towards the great guardian's head. The great guardian's expression changed slightly. He had no choice but to wave his long whip to meet the attack. However, what made him relieved was that this old thing didn't use any martial arts and completely relied on true qi to control the weapon. This made the great guardian relax. Boom! The whip and rod intertwined once again, making a loud sound. The powerful true qi collided and created a huge explosion. For a moment, sand and stones flew everywhere. What a strong power! Lin Yi used this time to heal most of his injuries. Of course, it was only a part of it. His meridians and organs were healed, but that was only enough to keep him from dying. His ribs were still broken, but that wasn't important. He just looked a little worse for wear. Since the great guardian was to be to help, to Lin Yi to help. Since Lin of, he the guardian had to said. Lin guardian was to say. Of the Lin of and Yang of the guardian of the great guardian to was to stage. Lin Yi needed a quiet place to heal his wounds as well. Those few whips from the protector had given him heavy injuries, and if he didn't heal himself quickly, he wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Naturally, he didn't dare to heal his injuries on the spot. He was too close to the great protector. If this old dog took advantage of the fact that his cheap master wasn't prepared and attacked him, then he would be finished. Sure enough, Lin Yi saw a cave in the direction the heaven-rank eccentric was pointing. There were some simple household utensils and traces of a bonfire in the cave. It seemed that this was where the heaven-rank eccentric lived. Come to think of it, the heaven-ranked eccentric should have come here to wait for his disciple after they parted ways. Then today he should have sensed the true energy fluctuations brought about by the great guardian's whips, so he hurried over. Are you okay? Lin Yi asked after putting Sun Jingyi down. I'm fine. I just scratched my arm. It's just a superficial wound. Sun Jingyi shook her head. Are you okay? If you can't, I can heal you. When Sun Jingyi said this, it was a struggle in her heart. She had only practiced the first level of the Sun family's mental cultivation method. In other words, if she stagnated, then she could only heal one person for the rest of her life. If she healed Lin Yi, then she couldn't heal anyone else. As for her relationship with Lin Yi, it was self-evident from now on. However, Sun Jingyi saw that Lin Yi's injuries were so serious, much more serious than yesterday. His chest was dented by the great protector. In her opinion, even if Lin Yi could heal himself, could he survive such a serious injury alone? Therefore, Sun Jingyi made this suggestion. Oh, if you heal me, what about the future? Lin Yi was slightly stunned after listening to Sun Jingyi's words, then asked with a smile. I don't care about the future. I just don't want anything to happen to you. Sun Jingyi said solemnly. Don't worry, it's not that serious. I can handle it myself. Linny smiled. He didn't expect Sun Jingyi to make up her mind to take this step. His heart was very comforted. It seemed that this girl was loyal. He didn't come out with her for nothing. And if you can't do it, please tell me. Sun Jingyi looked at Lin Yi's injury and was a little worried. Linny nodded and didn't say much. He closed his eyes and ran the second level of the art of dragon mastery. He quickly healed his injury. He had to recover as soon as possible. Although there was a master at the peak of the late stage of heaven stage helping him fight, Linny was still worried. This master was a little unreliable. If he ran away in the middle of the fight and the guard came looking for him, he and Sun Jingyi would be unlucky again. Therefore, the most important thing was to heal his injury first, and then see if his master killed the guard. If he did, then he would be relieved. Sun Jingyi knew that Linny was healing and didn't dare to disturb him. She just sat quietly and carefully observed Lin Yi's movements. When she saw Lin Yi's face gradually become ruddy, and the sunken ribs in his chest were slowly recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye, Sun Jingyi sighed in amazement at Lin Yi's magic, and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Lin Yi was actually more powerful than the Sun family's mental cultivation method. Such a serious injury recovered so easily? Didn't that mean that as long as Lin Yi was breathing, he wouldn't die? Thinking of this situation, Sun Jingyi was shocked. Wasn't this too powerful? Although she more or less knew some of Lin Yi's magic, seeing it with her own eyes at this moment, Sun Jingyi was still shocked. Chapter 2239. His physical strength had recovered to its peak, but he wasn't happy at all. Instead, he was worried. Why hasn't Master returned yet? The Great Protector was a Heaven rank initial stage master, while his master was a Heaven rank late stage master. The gap between the two was huge. To put it bluntly, it was similar to the previous battle between Lin Yi and the Great Protector. They weren't on the same level at all. It was a one-sided battle. However, it had been half an hour, and his master still hadn't finished the battle? Lin Yi was a little worried. A Heaven rank late stage master shouldn't be that hard to kill a Heaven rank initial stage master, right? Back then, when Miss Rock Candy was in the Hidden Tang family, she was very overbearing. Jingyi, stay here. Don't go out. I'll go see Master. Lin Yi hesitated for a moment and said, he is the one who gave you the map. Sun Jingyi also guessed the identity of the Heaven rank eccentric. And it's him. It's been half an hour, and he still hasn't returned. I'm afraid something happened to him. Lin Yi nodded and said seriously, then be careful. Sun Jingyi originally wanted to go with him, but she suddenly thought that it would be a waste of time. Instead, she would become a burden, so she simply gave up on the idea. After I go, if the situation isn't right, I'll let out a long whistle. At that time, you take the Skybolt pig down the mountain, and take refuge in the Great Flame Lion's cave. Lin Yi said. This. Sun Jingyi really didn't want to run alone. I can only run if you run. Don't worry, I'll definitely go back. I'm just afraid that I won't be able to heal myself. I'll have to rely on you. Lin Yi said. And Sun Jingyi's face was slightly red, but she agreed. Indeed, if she was here, she wouldn't be able to help Lin Yi. Instead, she would make him afraid and become his burden. This wasn't the time to be emotional, so Sun Jingyi finally agreed. From the moment Lin Yi walked out of the cave, he began to compress a chi bomb. Now that Lin Yi's physical strength had returned to its peak, Lin Yi was ready to compress a bigger chi bomb. Of course, after Lin Yi left the cave, he didn't walk very fast. In fact, it could be said that he was very slow. This was because Lin Yi was very careful with every step he took. He was always checking the surroundings and feeling the changes in the jade space. If the jade space emitted a weak warning signal, Lin Yi would give Sun Jingyi an advance warning. Lin Yi walked all the way to the hall at the top, but there wasn't any danger. As he walked closer, he heard sounds. It seemed that the battle between his heaven-ranked strange master and the great guardian was not over yet. This made Lin Yi feel a little strange. The difference in strength between the two was so obvious. Why hadn't the battle ended after more than half an hour? Could it be that there were other new enemies joining in? Or did this great guardian have the same ability as him to fight against enemies of a higher level? However, even if he had the ability to fight against enemies of a higher level, wasn't this ability a little too strong? An early-stage heaven rank could compete with a peak late-stage heaven rank master. Thinking of this, Linny quickened his pace and finally arrived at the top of the mountain again. However, he saw the strange man and the great guardian fighting inextricably. The two people were still the same, and there were no new enemies joining the battle. In other words, the great guardian had the ability to fight against a peak late-stage heaven rank master? However, after watching for a while, Linny found something unusual and couldn't help but frown. That great guardian was indeed very powerful. He was definitely much more powerful than old Master Zhao and those hidden families' heaven rank masters, but he definitely didn't have the ability to fight against a peak late-stage heaven rank master. At this moment, he was able to fight evenly with the heaven-ranked eccentric because although the heaven-ranked eccentric's strength was there, he did not know how to use martial skills. He did not know whether he had forgotten or simply did not think of using them. He simply poured his true qi into the black iron rod in his hand to resist the great guardian's whip. In this way, one side was completely using true qi to fight head-on, while the other side was relying on exquisite martial skills to make up for a lot of the gap and shortcomings of the great guardian. However, the most important thing was that there seemed to be some problems with the strange man's mind. His mind wasn't bright, and it also affected his reaction speed and moves. On the other side, the great guardian had a very clear method. One move after another, it was continuous. As soon as the first move ended, the next move would follow. But looking at the strange man, it was completely random. There was no method to speak of, and he hit wherever he wanted. As he continued to watch, Linny shook his head again and again. In just a short while, the strange man had already been hit. If it wasn't for his tyrannical strength, he would have been defeated by the great guardian long ago, and wouldn't have been able to last until now. Fortunately, his foundation was thick and his strength was there. For a moment, although he was stretched, he wouldn't be defeated. However, as a bystander, Linny was anxious in his heart. If this went on, it definitely wouldn't work. If this went on, the strange man would definitely lose. Although he was an expert with the strength of a peak late-stage heaven rank master, he didn't have any tactics or martial arts. He relied entirely on his tyrannical strength to fight head-on. Now that he was in danger, if the great guardian found a flaw and opportunity, it wasn't impossible to seriously injure him or even kill him. And the great guardian obviously saw this. He didn't risk his life fighting the strange man. Instead, he launched sneak attacks while fighting. At the same time, he looked for the strange man's weakness and opening, preparing to give him a fatal blow when he was unprepared. The great guardian had already seen Lin Yi's return, but he didn't care at all. In his eyes, Lin Yi was a dead man. Not to mention that he had already been seriously injured. Even if he hadn't, his moves wouldn't have any effect on the great guardian. Thus, he wasn't afraid that Lin Yi would help. In a battle between heaven rank experts, an earth rank expert wouldn't be helping, but would be a hindrance. If Lin Yi participated, the strange man would have to protect him. At that time, it would give the great guardian an opportunity to attack. The great guardian believed that Lin Yi wasn't stupid enough to rashly participate in a battle of this level. Thus, he continued to fight the heaven rank eccentric fearlessly. The apprehension and fear he had felt when they first fought had long since been thrown out of the 9 heavens. In his opinion, defeating or even killing the heaven rank eccentric was only a matter of time. And Lin Yi taking the initiative to come back was simply a good thing. After killing the strange man, he didn't need to look for Lin Yi anymore. This little thing had come back to die. Chapter 2240. It was clear that the heaven rank monster could get rid of the great guardian, but he had mental issues. It was already not easy for him to fight to a draw. However, this draw was relative. It wouldn't be long before the heaven rank monster would be suppressed by the great guardian. Lin Yi's guess was soon confirmed. Although the heaven rank monster wouldn't be defeated for a while, it was only a matter of time before he was defeated. Lin Yi had to speed up the compression of the energy bomb. If he could gather all the true qi in his body to compress an energy bomb, then the power would be quite terrifying. When he fought with Ma Zhu, his strength was far from what it was now. At that time, gathering all the strength in his body to create an energy bomb was already quite amazing. If he could compress all the energy in his body to create an energy bomb, then the power would probably be even more amazing. To deal with this great guardian, Linny didn't plan to hold back. He would use as much as he could, even if his meridians were damaged. Anyway, he still had the Skybolt pig. If not, the little fire lion and the lioness could be used as backup. Even if they were gone, there was still Sun Jingy, the lover, who could heal, so Linny didn't have any worries. Looking at the heaven-rank monster who was being played around by him, the great guardian sneered in his heart. So what if you're a peak late-stage heaven-rank expert? You've lost your mind. Didn't you still become my defeated opponent? The great protector's sneak attacks were successful again and again. Even though the heaven-ranked eccentric was very strong, he had suffered some injuries at this time. His movements had become somewhat sluggish, especially his legs, which had been repeatedly whipped by the great protector. It was fine at first, but after a while, the eccentric's legs were injured and his movement speed was naturally affected. Although Linny was worried, he couldn't act rashly. His energy bomb had been compressed for so long, and he had only compressed half of it. He was now a mid-stage Earth rank expert. If he wanted to compress all the true chi in his body into one, it would naturally take a lot more time than before. So Linny could only watch the heaven-rank monster suffer setbacks. But there was no other way. Old madman, go to hell. The great guardian's right hand shook, and the whip once again swept towards the strange man's legs. This was the weakness he had found. The heaven-rank freak should have forgotten his martial arts, and was fighting without any technique. He was completely relying on his own bravery, so if his legs were injured or even broken, it would affect his movements. In his eyes, he was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. The strange heaven-rank man didn't think too much about it. He raised his black iron rod to block the guard's whip, but he didn't know that it was just a feint. The whip didn't meet the black iron rod head-on. Instead, it lightly rose, bypassed his block, and fiercely lashed at his legs from another direction. Raging waves of the raging sea, the 12th move. This move, the head protector used all of his power, not even hesitating to use the 12th form of the raging waves of the raging sea, which wasted his physical strength. As a heaven-rank initial stage expert, he could activate the 12th form of the martial technique. This was a very impressive thing, but considering his identity and the fact that he came from that place, it was not surprising at all. Master, be careful. Linny couldn't help but shout when he saw this scene. But his shout was already too late. Even if it was just a heaven-rank initial stage expert, how fast was he? Linny saw through his intentions and tried to warn him, but it was already too late. The strange heaven-rank man's reaction speed was poor. When he heard Lin Yi's words, he hesitated for a moment before reacting. As a result, he was hit by the great guardian. Bang! A loud sound was heard. The strange heaven-rank man's leg burst into a mist of blood. The great guardian's raging waves of the raging sea, which could topple mountains and overturn the seas, affected Lin Yi, who was far away. He was swept by the violent and strong true energy, causing his body to sway. He staggered and sat on the ground. Fortunately, Lin Yi was far away, and the great guardian's move was directed at the strange heaven-rank man. Most of the force hit the strange heaven-rank man, and Lin Yi wasn't affected much. However, the strange heaven-rank man wasn't so good. He knelt on the ground from this blow, and let out an unwilling scream and roar. How is it? Isn't it great, old madman? This is just the beginning. The great guardian's confidence swelled to the extreme after his attack succeeded. Even if you are a heaven-rank late-stage expert, I can still grind you to death. With my current physical state, I can at least activate the 12th form of raging waves of the raging sea 5 more times. Can you take these 5 times? Although the strange heaven-rank man's mind was damaged, he wouldn't show any weakness in front of his enemies. He stood up shakily from the ground and angrily waved the black iron rod towards the great guardian's face. If it weren't for the fact that the 12th move required some time to charge up, the guard really wanted to use the 12th move of the raging seas and raging waves to beat this old madman so hard that he couldn't even crawl back up. Raging waves of the raging sea, 11th form. He couldn't activate the 12th form consecutively, but he could use it together with the 11th form. One fast and one slow. He could still kill the strange heaven-rank man. Pa! The strange heaven-rank man was already injured and his lower body was unstable. The black iron rod in his hand was wrapped by the great guardian's whip. With a shake, he was thrown away and landed heavily on the ground. Linny was extremely anxious. The previous 12th form of raging waves of the raging sea was the key to victory. The strange heaven rank man's legs were completely injured. Although he could still stand up with difficulty, Linny could see that the strange heaven rank man was forcing himself to stand up. He reckoned that the bones in his legs were already broken. If this went on, the strange heaven rank man wouldn't be able to last more than a few moves and would be defeated. Think about it, if an expert lost his legs, could he still be called an expert? If it was a normal peak late-stage heaven rank expert, there might be other ways, but this strange heaven rank man with mental problems could only be beaten up without his legs. However, although Lin-Yi was anxious, his true energy bomb had only been compressed by 2/3. There was still a third of true energy that hadn't been compressed. Lin-Yi didn't dare and couldn't act rashly. If this attack didn't have any effect on the Great Guardian, then the master and disciple pair would really be buried here. Thinking of this, Lin-Yi hesitated for a moment, but he still took out a small bottle, poured out a pill and threw it directly into his mouth. Chapter 2241. What Lin-Yi lacked now was time. As long as he sped up the speed of his mental cultivation method, the speed of compressing true qi would also increase. Lin-Yi hadn't eaten it before because he was reluctant to use it. He wouldn't use it easily unless it was a life and death situation. Although this extreme energy golden pill was only a first-grade elixir, with Han Jingjing's current level of alchemy, she could completely refine it in batches. However, the reason why Lin-Yi treasured it was not because it was difficult to refine, but because one of the ingredients in this elixir was very precious. Of course, this precious was relative. For the Hidden Tang family, it might not be much, but for Lin-Yi, it was precious. It was because this medicinal ingredient was monopolized by the Heavenly Elixir sect. The medicinal ingredients that flowed out of the market were also dried. There were no seeds, and even old Lin couldn't cultivate them in batches. Relying on the sale of treasures and medicinal ingredients, as well as finished elixirs, was the biggest source of income for the Heavenly Elixir sect. The reason why the Heavenly Elixir sect could continue to grow was also because of this, monopolizing a variety of resources in the cultivation world. Therefore, this extreme energy golden pill was used up, and Lin-Yi didn't have any left. If he wanted to get some raw materials for the extreme energy golden pill, Lin-Yi couldn't ask the Heavenly Elixir sect directly. Thinking of this, Lin-Yi regretted a little. When he exchanged information with Right Coiling Tiger, he should have exchanged for more medicinal ingredients for the extreme energy golden pill. However, at that time, Lin-Yi didn't expect that there would be a medicinal ingredient in this first-grade elixir that was monopolized by the Heavenly Elixir sect. When Lin-Yi went out this time and sorted out his belongings, he remembered to check the prescription of the extreme energy golden pill. However, he didn't expect that after checking, it would be like this. However, in this situation, no matter how rare this extreme energy golden pill was, he had to eat it. If he didn't eat it, he would die. Raging Waves 12th style. Taking advantage of the strange man falling to the ground, the guard had just finished recovering his true qi. Once again, he urged the 12th style, Raging Sea Bite. The soft whip wrapped in green true qi once again mercilessly lashed at the strange man. Lin-Yi was anxious, but he didn't stop it at this moment. Instead, he quickly refined the elixir and continued to circulate his inner force cultivation method to compress the true energy bomb. This extreme golden elixir of energy was indeed effective. Lin-Yi suddenly discovered that his mental cultivation method's circulation speed had actually been forcibly increased by more than twofold. No wonder it was called extreme golden elixir of energy. It really increased the human body's energy to the limit. Bang! The whip landed on the heaven rank eccentric's body, and once again exploded into a thick bloody mist. The heaven rank eccentric let out a blood-curdling screech filled with anger and unwillingness. He staggered as he crawled up from the ground. However, he spat out a mouthful of blood. It was obvious that his injuries were not light. This time, the heaven-ranked eccentric didn't have time to block the 12th form of the raging sea's raging waves, and it completely smashed into his body. How could the heaven-ranked eccentric have an easy time? His trembling body swayed on the spot before he could steady himself. His entire face was extremely pale and wretched. Old madman. This taste is not bad, right? Does it feel good? The guard sneered. A dignified peak late phase expert was actually beaten into such a sorry state by a heaven rank early phase cultivator. Ha 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 ha. The guard's laughter was very savage. Previously, he didn't expect that he could actually beat the heaven-ranked eccentric into such a sorry state. Humph. The heaven-ranked eccentric's eyes flashed with hatred. Although his entire body was in great pain, he still endured it and stood up. However, the moment he stood up, he suddenly thought of something and turned to look at Lin Yi. He shouted, "Lear, why are you back again? Run now. Take you down the mountain and run far away. Don't worry about me." Although his mind was a little problematic and his mind wasn't very bright, he could still distinguish between friend and foe. Moreover, he was very clear about his own situation. Although the guard's level was much lower than his, he was not his opponent at all. However, after a long time, he forgot how to activate his raging fire fist and could only use his true chi to resist. Moreover, because his mind wasn't very bright, it made his reaction speed a lot slower. That was why he suffered a big loss and lost in a mess. However, it didn't matter if he lost. He had to let Lin Yi escape. No one will be able to escape. The guard sneered and raised his hand. The whip in his hand once again lashed at the heaven-ranked eccentric. Raging waves of the raging sea, 11th form. The 11th form, raging waves of the raging sea, and the 12th form, raging waves of the raging sea were used together. It was a tried and tested magical weapon that allowed the heaven-ranked eccentric to be unable to turn the situation around. Bang! Although the heaven-rank eccentric tried his best to block with the black iron rod in his hand, his stamina consumption was too high and he had suffered serious internal injuries. He simply wasn't a match for the Great Protector, and was sent flying once again, landing on the ground with a bang. The severe pain from his chest and the severe physical exhaustion caused the heaven-ranked eccentric's vision to gradually become blurry. He looked at Lin Yi, who was still sitting on the ground like an old monk in meditation, and the guard who raised the whip and sneered. The heaven-ranked eccentric was unwilling. "Disciple, quickly run. What are you dawdling for?" The heaven-ranked eccentric roared at Lin Yi in shock and anger. Lin Yi clenched his teeth. He didn't want to waste any more energy talking. He was about to succeed. "Old lunatic, accept your fate." The guard let out a strange cry. He stomped on the ground and flew towards the direction of the heaven-ranked eccentric. He raised the whip in his hand and waved it in the air. With the attitude of a victor, he looked at the heaven-ranked eccentric who was on the verge of death. "With my insignificant heaven-ranked early-stage strength, I actually beat a heaven-ranked late-stage expert like a dog. Haha, if this gets out, it will be a huge joke in the cultivation world." After saying that, the guard prepared to activate the 12th form, Raging Waves of the Raging Sea. He could basically confirm that once this form was activated, even if the heaven-ranked eccentric didn't die, he wouldn't be far from it. Even if there were miraculous pills, it wouldn't be able to save him. When the heaven-ranked eccentric saw that Lin Yi wasn't running, he felt a pain in his heart. He struggled to get up from the ground and prepared to fight with the guard, but he didn't know how useful that would be. "You will get your retribution sooner or later," the heaven-ranked eccentric roared angrily. Chapter 2242. Master, be careful. At this moment, Lin Yi had completely compressed all the chi in his body into a super energy bomb. He stood up without stopping and shouted at the heaven-ranked monster. Then he said to the guard, "Old dog, eat my move first." How could the guard pay attention to Lin Yi? He had already experienced Lin Yi's strongest move. It was just SOSO and could only cause slight injuries to him. It wouldn't affect him much at all. This time, he was determined to get rid of the heaven-ranked monster. As long as this move was used, the heaven-ranked monster would have no room to turn the tables. Therefore, he hesitated for a moment but didn't stop. The whip still swept towards the monster, leaving his back to Lin Yi. He was ready to take this move head-on. Although Lin Yi might injure him again, it was worth it compared to getting rid of the heaven-ranked monster in one fell swoop. What made the guard the happiest was that Lin Yi didn't run, and even dared to take the opportunity to sneak attack him. Didn't he know what it meant to be a mantis trying to stop a chariot? Looking at the whip lashing towards the heaven-ranked monster, Lin Yi sighed. It seemed that he couldn't change the guard's mind. But it was also good that he let the monster fly. Otherwise, when the energy bomb exploded, the monster would probably be affected. As long as the monster didn't die and still had a breath left, Linny was confident that he could save him. Thinking about it, an expert at the peak of the late stage of heaven ranked shouldn't die so easily, right? Thinking of this, Lin Yi's body quickly rushed towards the guard. However, in order to not waste the energy and produce the biggest explosion, Lin Yi risked his life to detonate the energy bomb at close range. Seeing the heaven-ranked monster flying far away, Lin Yi also released the energy bomb in his hand. "Old dog, you're right. You'll have to pay for it sooner or later. I'll send you on your way now. Go to hell." After Lin Yi shouted, his body started to retreat rapidly, and at the place where Lin Yi was standing a moment ago, a figure appeared. There was a deafening explosion. Boom. A thunderous sound boomed in the hall at the peak of the mountain. At this moment, the entire Wulonghout mountain range was shaking violently. This was the second time that Lin Yi had created a complete Jinqi bomb, and he had not expected that the effect would be even greater than the last time. The sound of the explosion was like that of an atomic bomb. In an instant, a huge and terrifying energy was released. A mushroom cloud rose directly from the site of the incident. Green bricks, mud, and debris were all swept up. Sand and pebbles filled the sky. The entire hall seemed to have ceased to exist at this moment. Everything had been reduced to rubble that flew up into the sky. As for the place where the head protector was standing, because of the dust, he could not be seen clearly at all. No one knew what had happened to the head protector. Lin Yi's body. Although he was outside the center of the explosion, Lin Yi had experienced a big explosion before, so he was more experienced than Ma Zhu. But even so, Lin Yi was still heavily injured by the shockwave. Although Lin Yi's injury was not as serious as the last time, it was inevitable that his meridians were broken. However, Lin Yi did not faint. Instead, he looked at the center of the explosion with a pale face. He watched the mushroom cloud formed by the impact of the energy explosion continue to rise into the sky. I wonder if the head protector is dead? This time, it could be said that Lin Yi was betting his life. If the head protector was still alive, then Lin Yi could only blame his bad luck. The heaven rank weirdo had been hit head-on. Because he had no physical strength and was seriously injured, he did not even block and was directly sent flying. His body was far away from the scope of the hall. Although he gritted his teeth and held on, he knew that he could not hold on for long. His internal organs were all shattered, and his meridians were mostly broken. In this situation, no matter how many elixirs he took, it would be impossible to save him. However, he was worried about his disciple's safety, so he raised his head unwillingly. But when he raised his head, he saw a shocking scene. A thunderous sound suddenly came from where the head protector and Lin Yi were. Then, along with the flying sand and stones, a mushroom cloud rose into the sky. The heaven rank weirdo did not know what had happened, but he could guess that it was most likely Lin Yi using some method of mutual destruction. Did this kid bring a nuclear weapon up the mountain? Unable to see the situation over there, the heaven rank weirdo was anxious, but his body could not move at all. The thick smoke finally dispersed. The tremors of the Wulonghout mountain range had also stopped. The flying sand and pebbles had also been blown away to an unknown place. In the main hall, where the fight had just taken place, a super deep pit had appeared. Although Lin Yi had exhausted all his energy and was seriously injured, he still insisted on walking in the direction of the deep pit. When he arrived at the edge of the deep pit, Lin Yi was very surprised. He was surprised that the head protector actually didn't die under such a huge energy explosion. This guy really had some ability. However, Lin Yi was not worried because at this moment, the head protector could no longer be called a person. His arms and legs were long gone, and there was a huge hole in his abdomen. His head was also a bloody mess. He was probably hanging on with his true chi, and dying was only a matter of time. "Old dog, how do you feel? Very comfortable, right?" Lin Yi sneered at the head protector in the deep pit. The head protector looked at Lin Yi, his murky eyes flashing with unwillingness and confusion. He never would have thought that Lin Yi, an Earth-rank mid-phase expert, could actually use such a powerful move. What kind of move was this? Although he was confused, shocked, and angry, he did not dare to speak. He was afraid that if he opened his mouth, he would spit out true qi and die immediately. He imagined that at this moment, someone would come up to the mountain to save him. If someone from his sect came, he must tell this important news to his sect. This Earth-ranked mid-phase expert in front of him, no matter what, must be eliminated. Too monstrous, too strong. If he was allowed to grow, the situation of the martial arts world would perhaps undergo earth-shaking changes. This person must not be left alive. A dignified heaven-rank early-phase expert was beaten like a dog by a small Earth-rank mid-phase expert. Does it feel good? Linny looked at the head protector in front of him with satisfaction. Oh right, you are not even comparable to a dog. My dog can trample you to death with 1 foot. The head protector's chest heaved up and down. He looked at Linny in shock and anger, but did not open his mouth to speak. Chapter 2243. You. How did you? The guard didn't expect Lin Yi to see through his relationship with the Tagan family, and was shocked. It didn't matter if he died, but if it affected the sect's plan, then he would be a sinner for all eternity. Because his brother was still in the sect, he wanted to spread the news. However, the moment he opened his mouth, he spat out the last bit of true qi that was hanging on to his life. The guard's eyes rolled back and he died with everlasting regret. He passed away unwillingly. Linny frowned. He wanted to threaten and bribe the guard to get some useful clues from his mouth, but he didn't expect this old thing to die. But if he died, then so be it. Linny didn't have time to care about him. Right now, Linny was like a crossbow. The only strength he had left in his body was to say those few words. At this moment, after saying those words, Linny collapsed on the ground and used his last bit of strength to shout, "Skybolt Pig!" Gigi. Skybolt Pig jumped out and ran into Lin Yi's arms. Looking at the sudden appearance of Skybolt Pig, Lin Yi was a bit stunned. This little thing was nearby. If he knew it was nearby, Lin Yi wouldn't have shouted for it and wasted so much energy. It must be known that Lin Yi didn't have a trace of true qi in his body, so he could only rely on his physical strength. Of course, what Lin Yi didn't know was that while Sun Jingyi was waiting anxiously in the cave, Lin Yi didn't come back. The Heaven Stage Strange Man also didn't come back, and Lin Yi also didn't issue a warning whistle. Therefore, Sun Jingyi was anxious, but she didn't dare to go, so she sent Skybolt Pig to check the situation. This little thing was small and good at hiding, so it probably wouldn't be easy to be found. Sun Jingyi was going to wait for Skybolt Pig to find out what was going on before coming back to report. That was the truth. The Lightning Pig had a petite body and hid far away. After it went, the Heaven Ranker and the Great Protector didn't notice it. Even Lin Yi didn't notice it. This little guy was smart? However, Lin Yi did not think too much about it. He picked up the Skybolt Pig and started to absorb its true qi to heal himself. Although the Skybolt Pig appeared to be in great pain, it still allowed Lin Yi to absorb the qi from its body. Skybolt Pig was very smart. He knew that Lin Yi needed to heal his injuries, so he gritted his teeth and endured. Lin Yi first used the true qi from the Skybolt Pig to repair his meridians. For Lin Yi, this was already a walk in the park. However, after Lin Yi repaired his meridians, he didn't continue to repair his internal organs and injured bones. Instead, he quickly ran to the strange heaven-ranked man. "Master, how are you?" Although the master in front of Lin Yi was fake, Lin Yi had already regarded him as someone he respected. He was very likely to be Faubert's master. Moreover, he stood up for him in his moment of crisis, so Lin Yi was very concerned about his situation. I'm afraid I can't make it. Lear, what move did you use just now? How could it be so powerful?" A trace of confusion flashed through the strange heaven-ranked man's muddy eyes. "How come I don't remember you having such a powerful move?" "I learned it later," Lin Yi said perfunctorily. Seeing that the strange heaven-ranked man was still breathing, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. As long as he wasn't dead, it would be easy to deal with him. "Yes. I'm about to die. What's the point of saying this? I still have a few important words to say to you. It's about the enemy, cough cough." At this point, the strange heaven-ranked man suddenly coughed and coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. It was obvious that he couldn't hold on any longer. "Master, don't talk for now, I'll heal you." Lin Yi was shocked. He knew that he couldn't delay any longer, so he quickly grabbed the strange heaven-ranked man's hand and locked his pulse. At the same time, He began to use the second stage of the art of dragon mastery to heal the strange heaven-ranked man. At the same time, he instructed Skybolt Pig, go tell Jingyi that we're fine. Let her come over. I'll help you recover your strength later. Skybolt Pig's true chi was mostly absorbed by Lin Yi, but Skybolt Pig also knew that it was only temporary. Lin Yi would help him recover later, so he barked twice and quickly ran in the direction of the cave. The true chi that Lin Yi absorbed from Skybolt Pig was first used to heal his meridians, but to heal the strange heaven-ranked man's broken internal organs and bones first. Lin Yi's meridians were used to circulate the mental cultivation method to transfer true chi. So it didn't matter if the strange heaven-ranked man's meridians were not repaired for the time being. Lin Yi had to help him save his life first. He directly extracted energy from the space in the jade and transferred it into the strange heaven-ranked man's body. Lin Yi quickly helped him repair his broken internal organs and bones. This magical effect made the strange heaven-ranked man's eyes widen. Li, when did you also cultivate Er's mental cultivation method? You can actually heal me? Master, don't talk first, it's a waste of true chi. Lin Yi reminded. Although Lin Yi was here and the strange heaven-ranked man wouldn't die, it was still a waste of true chi for him to talk now. Lin Yi himself was just holding on. After healing the strange heaven-ranked man, Lin Yi still had to heal himself. The strange heaven-ranked man nodded. Although he felt strange, he thought that it was most likely taught by you, so he no longer had any doubts. He quietly lay there and enjoyed Lin Yi's healing. Skybolt Pig ran back to the cave, and Sun Jingyi didn't know what had happened when she heard that deafening sound. She didn't dare go up, but the feeling of the earth shaking and the mountains shaking still made her heart skip a beat. She didn't know if someone took the explosives to blow up the mountain, so she was even more anxious. When she saw Skybolt Pig, she quickly asked, Skybolt Pig, how is it? Are Lin Yi and that strange heaven-ranked man all right? Gigi. Although Skybolt Pig saw that Lin Yi was injured, he also knew that after Lin Yi killed the guard, he could heal himself and the strange heaven-ranked man, so he wasn't in danger. In order to make Sun Jingyi feel at ease, Skybolt Pig nodded. They are fine? That's great. Sun Jingyi saw Skybolt Pig nodding, and immediately heaved a sigh of relief. The big stone in her heart was finally lifted. Skybolt Pig stretched out his front paw and pointed outside, meaning for Sun Jingyi to follow him. Sun Jingyi didn't hesitate, and directly followed Skybolt Pig out of the cave. They walked towards the top of the mountain, but the higher they went, the more shocked they were. That originally incomparably majestic hall had actually disappeared without a trace. Although it was dilapidated and there were ruins everywhere, at least the overall outline was there, making people feel that it was majestic. Chapter 2244. This is. Sun Jingyi was just about to ask when she saw Lin Yi covered in blood, and the strange man of heaven stage not far away. Lin Yi was sitting cross-legged, while the strange man of heaven stage was lying on the ground. It seemed that Lin Yi was healing him. Sun Jingyi subconsciously quickened her pace and ran over. Lin Yi. Jingyi, you are here? Lin Yi nodded to her. It's okay. We are all injured, but I can heal. Sun Jingyi was relieved. She wanted to ask where the head protector went, but on second thought, it was better not to disturb Lin Yi. After all, Lin Yi was concentrating on healing. So she sat on the side and quietly waited for Lin Yi. After Lin Yi finished healing the organs and main bones of the strange man of heaven stage, he was relieved. There was no problem. At least the strange man of heaven stage wouldn't die. He got his life back. And Lin Yi began to divide a part of his true chi to heal himself, and the other part to the strange man of heaven stage. This way, his healing would not delay, but the speed would be a little slower. But Lin Yi was not in a hurry. The head protector was dead, so there was nothing to worry about. In a majestic hall, an old man wearing a bagua robe was meditating. He suddenly opened his eyes and said faintly, "Didn't I say? Don't disturb me when I am meditating on the way of heaven?" Master, it's not good. 13th brother's soul jade card is broken. The person who came was also wearing a bagua robe, and his face was very nervous and sad. What? 13th brother's soul jade card is broken? The eyes of the old man in the bagua robe suddenly shot out a soul-stirring light, making the person not dare to look directly at him. Yes, I am in charge of the deacon today. Suddenly, I received a report from the disciple who cleaned the jade plaque hall. He said that just now, 13th brother's soul jade card was broken. The person said carefully, 13th brother. How could he meet with an accident in that place? With his skills, he can even contend with a mid-stage heaven stage master. Could it be? The old man in the bagua robe suddenly stood up and said to the person, immediately send 12th brother to Ruele de town. Let 6th brother go with him and investigate what happened. If there are enemies, let 6th brother deal with them personally. Don't be careless. Then let 12th brother protect Tagan Dragon. Yes, master. Although the newcomer was the first disciple of the old man in the 8 trigrams robe, he was very careful in front of the old man in the 8 trigrams robe, not daring to show the slightest disobedience. Although they were both peak late-stage heaven stage masters, there was a huge gap between the sect and sect. They were all at the peak of the late stage of the heaven rank, but there was a difference in strength. Some had just stepped into the heaven rank, while others were infinitely close to the legendary heavenly Tao. 6 Tian sect master's sect was to meet. He staged late Ian and was also one. The old man in the bagua robe had 13 disciples. The head protector from before was 13th brother. Even the youngest disciple was at the early stage of heaven stage. The old man wanted to send him out to gain experience, but he didn't expect to meet with such a disaster. 6th brother was 13th brother, so it was natural for him to avenge his brother. As for 12th brother, he took over 13th brother's position and became the head protector of the Tagan family. Tell 6th brother to be careful. Don't be blinded by hatred. The old man in the bagua robe was heartbroken, but with his strength, he didn't show his emotions. If I'm not wrong, it should be related to the remnants of that sect. Yes, master. I will tell 6th brother. The eldest disciple cupped his fists and said respectfully, go. The old man in the bagua robe waved his hand and let his eldest disciple leave. As for him, he sighed slightly. Whether or not he would be able to step into that realm in this lifetime and bring the sect back to that level would depend on this major event in the future. There couldn't be any mistakes in this matter. Even if he had to sacrifice a few disciples, he wouldn't hesitate. Fortunately, Tagan Dragon was fine. Otherwise, who knew how much heartache he would be feeling right now? Finally, Lin Yi finished healing himself and the strange man, and Lin Yi's true chi was also replenished. The next step was to help the Skybolt Pig recover its strength. Lin Yi picked up Skybolt Pig and started channeling his practitioner's arts, helping the pig recover its strength without stopping. The Skybolt Pig was his mobile life-saving treasure, so he had to keep his true chi full at all times. Lear, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. After the strange man recovered, he personally ran to the edge of the pit to check on the head protector. Seeing that he didn't look like a human anymore, he couldn't help but be very surprised. Lear, this move of yours is too powerful. Also, how can you heal people like you? Previously, Lin Yi didn't have the time to carefully think about what the strange man said. But now that he thought about it carefully, Falbert's original name was Fu Li. Wasn't that Lear? And Grandma's son's name was Sun Luoyue. Wasn't that you? Coupled with the previous association, Lin Yi could already be sure that the strange man was Falbert's master. Thinking of this, Lin Yi couldn't help but smile bitterly. If he and Falbert were the strange man's disciples, wouldn't that mess up the seniority? But now the strange man's brain was a bit messed up. It was fine as long as he was clear in his heart. Yes, master, I learned a lot of things, Lin Yi said. But how did you happen to appear here? I gave you the map before. I don't remember what happened after that. Then I got separated from you. I thought that since you took the map, you would definitely put it together and come back to look for that treasure. So I came back to the Wulong Haut mountain range to wait for you. The strange man said. How would I know that the enemy wouldn't give up? They actually sent people to guard here. Thanks to our tacit cooperation, we killed that old thief. Yes, but that treasure. Lin Yi just wanted to ask what the treasure was and what it was used for, but he was interrupted by the strange man. Don't mention that treasure anymore. After you go back, cultivate well and strive to break through as soon as possible. I have more important tasks to do. I want to steal the enemy's cultivation method. I already have some clues. The strange man said to himself. But I'm a little tired now. I want to sleep for a while. You come back to the cave with me. Chapter 22:45. Lin Yi, on the other hand, infused energy into the skybolt pig while carrying it. Then, he and Sun Jingyi followed the strange man, and went to the cave from before. When they arrived at the cave, the strange man fell asleep on the ground. Perhaps the battle just now had really exhausted him. Lin Yi only treated the strange man's injuries, but did not infuse his true qi. After all, the strange man did not circulate the internal cultivation method to actively absorb spiritual qi, so Lin Yi had no way to infuse his true qi. Moreover, Lin Yi did not want to be too shocking. The strange man was only injured and exhausted a lot of his physical strength. This degree of exhaustion was a natural exhaustion that could be recovered with rest. On the contrary, Lin Yi's true qi exhaustion was a real exhaustion that could not be replenished with simple rest. Looking at the strange man who fell asleep, Lin Yi shook his head helplessly. He pointed to the small iron box in Sun Jingyi's hand, and motioned for her to open it. Sun Jingyi had always been very curious about what was in the small iron box that could actually attract such a crazy fight from the guards. Of course, Lin Yi had more thoughts. The treasure in the box could actually cause the destruction of Falbert's sect. It must be extraordinary. Can I open it? It won't be like the ginseng fruit in Journey to the West, which disappeared once it fell to the ground, right? Will the thing inside break or lose its effect once I open the box? Sun Jingyi was a little hesitant at the last moment. She felt more or less regretful in her heart. Although there was definitely a treasure in the box, she was still looking forward to clues about her parents. She came here to find clues about her parents. If she had known that it was a treasure, she would not have rushed to come with Lin Yi. In the end, they almost lost their lives here. If it were not for the help of noble people and noble beasts, the two of them would have died here. Of course, you really know how to imagine. How can it be so magical? Lin Yi smiled. Then help me. Sun Jingyi hesitated for a moment, but still handed the small iron box in her hand to Lin Yi. Okay, then I'll help you open it. Lin Yi smiled and took the small iron box. If the thing inside is broken, you have to compensate me, Sun Jingyi said. Oh how? Lin Yi smiled and said, but isn't it a bit unfair? I'm helping you. I don't care, but I haven't thought about how to compensate. Jingyi blushed a little as she looked at Lin Yi nervously, afraid that he'd see through her thoughts. This trip to Oolong Hout had brought the two a lot closer to each other, and Jingyi suddenly felt that Lin Yi was quite a nice guy. No wonder so many girls liked him. Was she going to upgrade to become all of his lovers? But then she suddenly thought that it would be difficult for her to upgrade now, right? There were a lot of women around Lin Yi, and there were even a few waiting in line, putting aside Mingyao and Yushu. Even Lingshan had a number lined up a long time ago. Jingyi didn't know what to do. What if she got rejected? Wouldn't she lose a lot of face? Moreover, Sun Jingyi couldn't be sure if she was just grateful and impulsive, or if she really fell in love with Lin Yi. Forget it, she didn't care so much. She'd take it one step at a time. Sun Jingyi sighed. Okay, then if it's really broken, I'll compensate you when you think about it. Lin Yi didn't take it seriously, thinking that she was just joking. He picked up the small iron box and began to study it. On the small iron box, there was a small iron button mechanism. Lin Yi pressed it lightly, and the mechanism was activated. The lid of the box naturally opened, and what came into Lin Yi's eyes was a pure white, crystal clear stone. The stone looked very special. It looked like a piece of jade or a piece of glass, but it wasn't. In order to find pure yellow jade, blue crystal powder, and other things that could be used to condense jade, Lin Yi had looked up a lot of information, but he didn't see this strange material. It looked like jade but not jade, crystal but not crystal. It looked a bit like amber, but it wasn't amber. What a beautiful stone. Sun Jingyi saw the strange stone in the box in Lin Yi's hand, and couldn't help but exclaim, "It's indeed very beautiful." Lin Yi nodded, but his attention wasn't focused on how beautiful this stone was. It could be regarded as the sect's treasure. It couldn't be because it was beautiful. After all, for these ancient sects and cultivators, no matter how beautiful gold and silver jewelry was, it was just gold and silver jewelry. It was just a worldly possession, and had no great use. Money could be earned anywhere. There was no need to muster a large force to come to an ancient sect to rob, kill, and seize the treasure. There was also no need to let a heaven stage expert guard here for so many years, just to wait for the people of this sect to come back and take this treasure. Therefore, this thing was definitely not as simple as it looked on the surface. However, what was the use of this thing? Linny reached out and carefully took out this strange stone. Then, he weighed it in his hand and carefully looked at it. The stone felt very cold in his hand, but it gave Linny a very familiar feeling. His heart moved slightly, as if there was a little interaction and resonance with this stone, which made Linny a little surprised. "What's wrong?" Seeing Linny frown, Sun Jingyi quickly asked, "What is this thing?" "I don't know for the time being." Linny shook his head and carefully recalled the feeling just now. That feeling was fleeting, so Linny couldn't capture it. Seeing Lin Yi's contemplative look, Sun Jingyi didn't say anything to disturb him. She sat quietly on the side, hugged her legs, and waited for Lin Yi's answer. Too many things happened in these 2 days. While the relationship between Sun Jingyi and Lin Yi was getting closer, it also made her a little tired. This trip to Wulonghout mountain range was too thrilling, and it made her a little scared. Lin Yi didn't capture that trace of feeling, so he reached out and held the stone. He slowly transferred his qi into it. At this moment, Lin Yi's face suddenly showed a trace of surprise. This stone actually had a trace of rejection to the qi he transferred in. And when Lin Yi ran the internal cultivation method, there was a continuous flow of qi into Lin Yi's body from the stone. At this moment, Lin Yi finally understood the situation. This stone was actually similar to his own jade pendant space. It could actually provide continuous energy to the cultivator. Chapter 2246. Lin Yi frowned. He tried to enter the space of the jade pendant to enter the stone, but his attempt failed. Lin Yi couldn't enter the space of the stone. This stone seemed to be just a tool to assist in cultivation and provide energy. It didn't have the various functions of the space of the jade pendant. However, although this treasure was very magical, it was just a chicken rib for Lin Yi. With the space of the jade pendant, this thing was simply child's play. However, this matter also indirectly proved one thing. That was, the space of the jade pendant on his body must not be known by anyone, unless it was someone who was very close to him. Otherwise, if it was spread out, then there would be endless trouble. An ordinary man's wealth would arouse his own ruin. A magical stone could cause such a dispute. Not to mention the jade pendant that Lin Yi had that was 100 times stronger than this stone. This thing is used for cultivation. Lin Yi put the stone in the iron box, then handed it to Sun Jingyi and said, "Used for cultivation?" Sun Jingyi was slightly surprised. "Try it. Use your hand to hold the stone, and use your practitioner's arts. There'll be an endless stream of pure energy flowing into your body from the stone, and it'll speed up your training." Lin Yi explained the stone's functions. "Ah, so magical?" Sun Jingyi wasn't stupid. She immediately understood the value of this stone. The function of this thing was simply against the natural order. No wonder the guards wanted to snatch it, and the ancient sect on this mountain range was destroyed because of it. However, Sun Jingyi couldn't understand. What did her parents have to do with this sect? Moreover, how did her parents get this treasure map? It can be considered magical. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people coming to snatch it. Lin Yi said, "The energy in this stone is much purer than the outside world's spiritual energy. Using it to cultivate will naturally yield twice the results with half the effort. Then, you don't have the slightest intention of killing them and stealing their treasures?" Sun Jingyi looked at Lin Yi strangely. She was very clear about the value of this thing. If it was really as Lin Yi said, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it would cause a bloodbath. But didn't Lin Yi want it for himself? So many people had their eyes on this stone. But Lin Yi had researched the use of this stone and returned it to him so easily? Sun Jingyi couldn't understand Lin Yi. This man was really strange. If he hadn't told her what the stone was for and asked for it, she might have given it to him. However, he didn't do that. He returned the stone to her, and told her what it was for. "Kill you?" Lin Yi looked at Sun Jingyi and asked. Sun Jingyi nodded. "Do you think I'll kill you?" Lin Yi asked. "I won't." Sun Jingyi was a little frustrated. "It's really hard to guess your thoughts. This kind of good thing, so many people want to snatch it, but you don't care and returned it to me. If I wanted to snatch it, I would have tricked you into giving me the map. I came here to hunt for treasures myself. Why would I bring you along? Lin Yi said with a smile. Not everyone wants to snatch other people's things. Okay. Sun Jingyi shrugged and said. I thought there would be clues about my parents. I didn't expect to find a treasure after looking for it. If I knew this, I wouldn't have come. I even took such a big risk and almost caused you to die. Why? You don't seem to care about this thing? Lin Yi asked with a smile. It's not that I don't care, but the mental cultivation method I practice is similar to the function of this thing. No matter how powerful I am, I can only help others in the end, so this thing is not very useful to me. Sun Jingyi handed the small box to Lin Yi and said, simply give it to you. Give it to me? Lin Yi was slightly stunned. Yeah, you're so generous. Can't I be generous for once? Jingyi herself didn't know why she'd be so generous as to give this to him. Perhaps he'd traded his life for it, and she herself didn't have much use for it, after all? Oh, thank you. Lin Yi was stunned and a little touched, but he still pushed the small box back to Sun Jingyi. I have my own cultivation method. This thing is useless to me. It's better for you to keep it. This should be something your parents left for you. How can I take it? Moreover, your auxiliary mental cultivation method is not bad. Maybe it will be useful to me in the future. Sun Jingyi didn't think much of the first half of Lin Yi's sentence. After all, even if this was left for her by her parents, it was really useless to her. Even if she practiced the Sun family's mental cultivation method to the extreme, it would still be a wedding dress for others in the end. However, the second half of Lin Yi's sentence made Sun Jingyi's heart palpitate. Is he hinting at something? He clearly knows the special nature of my mental cultivation method. Is he making an appointment with me in advance? Do I have to give him all the vital energy I cultivate in the future? Thinking of this, Sun Jingyi blushed a little, but she hesitated for a moment and still accepted the small box. Since Lin Yi didn't want this thing, she couldn't give it to others. She wouldn't even say half a word more. If this thing was known by others, then not only would it bring her a lot of trouble, but it would also implicate Lin Yi at the same time. Not to mention anything else, if the forces behind the Great Guardian found Lin Yi, it would be a huge trouble. Well, then I can only accept it. For you, I will work hard to cultivate. Sun Jingyi said. Lin Yi smiled. Are you tired? You should take a rest too. You have been nervous these 2 days. You didn't sleep well, right? Yesterday in the Fire Lion's den, I slept okay. Sun Jingyi said, but today I am really a little tired. Then sleep. Lin Yi said, I will cultivate. This time he was injured and lost all his strength, but it didn't help Lin Yi's strength level to go any further. Without destruction, there can be no construction. After destruction, there can be construction. This was Lin Yi's tried and tested method of breaking through the limit. To put it bluntly, it was a bit like looking for abuse, but on the path of martial arts, everyone had their own way of cultivation and breakthrough. All roads lead to Rome, and everyone was different. It was really hard to say whether these opponents were torturing Lin Yi or helping Lin Yi. It was just that Lin Yi had just advanced to the middle phase of Earth class, and his strength level had stabilized through Wang Xinyan's fragrance not long before he came to the Wulonghout Mountains. If he wanted to level up this time, it was basically an extravagant hope, so Lin Yi wasn't very regretful. In the middle of the night, Lin Yi was cultivating when he suddenly heard a strange cry. Chapter 2247. On one hand, he was afraid that the strange man would go crazy again, and on the other hand, he was afraid that the Great Guardian's accomplices would come looking for him. He didn't expect that the thing that Lin Yi was worried about would go crazy in the end. After the strange man woke up, he suddenly crawled up from the ground and looked at everything in the cave in a daze. Suddenly, his gaze fell on Lin Yi and revealed an ominous glint. Who are you? Why are you here? Lin Yi was slightly startled. The strange man had always thought that he was his disciple, so why did he suddenly not recognize him? However, Lin Yi still said, Master, it's me, I'm your disciple. You're my disciple? The strange man was also startled, and immediately said, You're not Lear. Who are you? Lin Yi's heart tightened. Did the strange man return to normal? Or did he go crazy again? He actually didn't recognize him? Speak. Who are you? Who the hell are you? The strange man roared, and his figure flashed as he appeared in front of Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't have the chance to dodge. He grabbed Lin Yi's collar, and his eyes were filled with vigilance and anger. Tell me, did you kill my disciple? Where is Lear? Tell me. I'm Lear. Lin Yi didn't think that the heaven-class monster would turn on him like that. He smiled bitterly in his heart, but he had no choice but to insist that he was Li. Otherwise, the monster would kill him with one slap. You are Lear? The strange man frowned, and the strength in his hand increased. He directly picked up Lin Yi and was about to throw Lin Yi against the wall. Quickly tell me who are you, or else this old man will throw you to death. Old mister, don't be agitated. Sun Jingyi was also awakened by this shout. Seeing that the strange man was going to harm Lin Yi, she was startled. She didn't want to say anything and wanted Lin Yi to settle it himself, but seeing that it couldn't be settled, she could only brace herself and walk over to explain for Lin Yi. He is your disciple. The man glared at the dissuasion and was about to retort when he turned to look at Sun Jingyi. He paused, a trace of confusion flashing through his eyes before turning back to Sun Jingyi. You are? Why are you here? The strange man looked at Sun Jingyi strangely, then turned to look at Lin Yi. You said he is Lear? Although Sun Jingyi didn't know why the strange man suddenly became less irritable, it was still a good thing. She quickly nodded and said, Yes, he is your disciple, Lear. Oh, that's right. The strange man let go of Lin Yi and nodded. Since Yuer said you are Lear, then you must be Lear. Phew. Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief and thought that he was lucky. Although Sun Jingyi was confused, Lin Yi's guess was close to the mark. The strange man probably saw that he didn't look like Li Fu and suddenly became clear-headed. But when he saw Sun Jingyi, he mistakenly thought that she was Sun Luyue's grandma. So he felt that what she said was true and thought that he was Lear. Fortunately, Sun Jingyi was here. Otherwise, it would be hard for Lin Yi to explain. No. You're not Lear, you're not. The strange man looked at Lin Yi and suddenly shouted. But when he looked at Sun Jingyi, his gaze became doubtful again. You are Yuer. That's right. But you're not Lear. You're Yuer. You're Lear? You're not. You are? You're not. The strange man's face suddenly turned pale, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He screamed and covered his head with both hands, as if he was in great pain. Master. Lin Yi wanted to use the silver needles to help him relieve the pain, but the strange man pushed Lin Yi to the side and ran out of the cave while screaming. Soon he disappeared into the night. Sigh. Lin Yi sighed helplessly. It seemed that the strange man's illness was acting up again. Just like last time. He ran away without warning and didn't even say goodbye. Faubert's master was really pitiful. One moment he was normal, the next moment he was crazy. When he was normal, he wasn't normal either. When he was crazy, he was even more confused. Lin Yi, that strange man. Why did he suddenly? Sun Jingyi was sleeping before, so she didn't know what happened. I don't know, but it might be his madness acting up again. Lin Yi smiled bitterly and said, Last time it was in the cave. When I was sleeping in the middle of the night, he jumped up and ran away. It's the same this time. Ah, then he just ran away like that? Sun Jingyi looked at the iron box in her hand, and didn't know what to say. And he just ran away like that. Lin Yi nodded. It seems that when he sleeps at night, he isn't very awake. But it's better during the day. During the day, he still treats me as his disciple. Then what should we do now? Sun Jingyi said. Where can he go? It's hard to say. It's late at night. If he wants to run, where can we find him? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. At most, we can follow the direction he ran in. If we really can't find him, then there's nothing we can do. Last time, Lin Yi waited in the cave for a long time, but the heaven-rank strange man didn't come back. He reckoned that this time, the strange man wouldn't be able to come back. Instead of waiting in the cave, it was better to take the initiative to look for him. The key problem was that Lin Yi still had several questions that he hadn't asked, including Faubert's enemies, the true use and origin of this strange stone, and so on. At present, he could only try to look for him. If he really couldn't find him, Then Linny had no other way. And since the strange man wasn't by his side, Linny didn't want to stay in the cave anymore. After all, without the strange man as a bodyguard, Linny wouldn't be able to deal with it if the Great Protector's accomplices came looking for him. Therefore, instead of being in danger here, it was better to take the initiative to look for the strange man and avoid the Great Protector's accomplices. All right, let's go together. Sun Jingyi nodded. She had rested enough, and most importantly, she also wanted to ask the strange man about the origin of the treasure in her hands. What Sun Jingyi wanted to know the most was whether this thing had anything to do with her parents, and why did she have half a treasure map in her hands? Chapter 2248. After doing all this, Linny asked the Skybolt pig, "Can you find the heaven-rank strange man's trail?" The Skybolt pig shook his head, indicating that it was a bit difficult. After all, human cultivators were different from spirit beasts. Moreover, his current level was too low, so it was a bit troublesome to find human cultivators. Even if it was a human cultivator that he had seen before, it would be very difficult for him to find them. Linny saw the pig's answer, and didn't press the issue. Together with Jingyi, they chased after the heaven-class monster in the direction he ran off to. With the strange man's speed, Linny and Sun Jingyi naturally wouldn't be able to catch up. Now Linyi's only hope was that the strange man would stop after a while. It would be best if he returned to normal. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to catch up to him even if they chased him all the way. Moreover, if the strange man changed his direction halfway, Linny wouldn't be able to find him. The strange man fled in a slanted direction towards the middle of the mountain range, but it was completely opposite to the direction Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi had come from. Linny didn't know if there was a path there or if he could go down the mountain, but since the strange man ran in that direction, he could only follow. Lin Yi's guess wasn't wrong. At the same time, at the foot of the Wulong Haut mountain range, two uninvited guests wearing bagua robes suddenly appeared in the Tagan family's courtyard. Of course, they came and went without a trace. They silently stepped into the Tagan family's courtyard and didn't attract the attention of the other families and forces in the small town. Even if they were standing in the Tagan family's courtyard, they didn't alarm anyone. Until the Tagan family's patrolling servant suddenly discovered that there were two more people in the courtyard. He was immediately shocked. Just as he was about to shout that there were assassins invading, the servant was also an astute person. Seeing that these two people were wearing the same clothes as the family's great protector, he didn't rashly shout. He reckoned that these two people might have some relationship with the great protector, so he carefully asked, "Excuse me, you two are? Take me to Takango." Among the two, one of them was obviously young, about the same age as the head protector. This man was old 12. As for the other old man with a grave and stern expression, he was the elder brother of the 13th guardian, the 6th guardian. At this moment, his heart was very heavy. He did not expect that his younger brother, who had come out to train, would die in a foreign land. Originally, training outside and assuming the position of Tagan family's great protector was a lucrative job. Not only did he not need to be on duty in the sect, he was also worshipped by Tagan family here. His words carried enormous weight, and he did not dare to disobey. This kind of lucrative job used to be the most envious job of these brothers, but first, because Old 13 was the youngest, and second, he was the younger brother of Old 6, everyone let him do it. But they didn't expect such bad news. The Soul Jade tablet had shattered. Without a doubt, Old 6 didn't even need to confirm it to know that his younger brother, Old 13th, had died. There was no chance of luck or deception with Master's Soul Jade tablet. All of them had their own Soul Jade tablet, which was made by Master using a special method. Even Tagan Long had one. Once the Soul Jade tablet shattered, it meant that the person had died, and there was no possibility of survival. So no matter how sad they were, it was useless. Old 6 calmly came to the Tagan family, ready to find Tagan Long and Tagan Gao to confirm what had happened. Who was so powerful to be able to kill Old 13? One had to know that Old 13's strength was very high, and he could even fight against a heaven-ranked middle-stage expert. Yet he actually died here. There must be something fishy about this matter. "Excuse me, you two are?" The servant had to first confirm the identity of the visitors. Otherwise, he wouldn't dare to rashly bring these two to see the family head. We are your senior brothers of the head protector. Old 12 said. Ah, please. Hearing that they were the senior brothers of the head protector, the servant didn't dare to say anything else and quickly made an inviting gesture. In the Tagan family, although these servants didn't know some of the core secrets of the family, they knew that the head protector's status in the family wasn't any lower than the family head, Tagan Gao. Old 6 and Old 12 nodded, and expressionlessly followed the servant into the inner courtyard. In fact, with their skills, entering and exiting the inner courtyard was as easy as turning over their hands. However, they were too lazy to search every room, so it was more convenient to find a member of the Tagan clan to lead them. They followed the servant to the front of a big house in the inner courtyard. Just as the servant was about to report, Old 12 waved his hand and said, "No need, we can go in ourselves." With that said, Old 12 pushed open the door of the house and walked in with Old 6. The servant followed behind worriedly. Just as he was about to apologize to Tagan Gao, he heard Tagan Gao say, "Head protector, are you back? You are Tagan Gao, right?" Old 12 didn't answer Tagan Gao's question, but looked at the old man in the room and asked. Tagan Gao was shocked. He didn't expect that the person who came in wasn't the head protector, but a stranger. It should be known that in the Tagan family, only the head protector could enter and exit his house at will. Therefore, Tagan Gao didn't think much before, but now he was shocked. He suddenly stood up and turned to look at the door. Who is it? However, when Tagan Gao saw the attire of the two strangers, he suddenly let out a sigh of relief and asked tentatively, "You are the same as the head protector, from that place?" 12th brother nodded expressionlessly. Tagan Gao's heart tightened. He waved his hand at the servant and said, "You can leave, there's nothing for you to do here." Yes. The servant saw that Tagan Gao seemed to know the people, so he didn't stay any longer. He bowed and turned to leave. After he closed the door, Tagan Gao welcomed them with a smile. "The two sirs are from that place. This old man didn't go out to greet you, my apologies. However, the head protector has gone out, and hasn't returned yet. Do you want this old man to send him a signal?" There was no communication signal in the Wulan mountain range, and there was some inexplicable interference, so communication equipment couldn't be used. Therefore, each family had a unique communication code for people who went up the mountain, such as signal flares. Chapter 2249. What? Tagango was shocked by Old 12's words. Is he dead? Didn't that mean he was dead? The head protector was so powerful that he could even fight against a mid-phase disaster practitioner. How could he be dead? How could there be a rival to the head protector in Riolita town? Master has already found out about his death through a special method. Old 12 said. Tell us, what did the head protector do? What did he say and do before he left? You have to tell us word for word. 12th brother had to find out how 13th brother had died. What was the cause of his death? Did anything strange happen here before he died? Yes. Tagango hurriedly invited the two of them to sit down in the living room. After making tea for them personally, he did not dare to hide anything. He started from the time when Tagan Dragon had discovered a small fire attribute fire lion, and was about to take it as a contractual spiritual beast. This is what happened. The Adventurers Guild controlled by my family publicly recruited adventurers to capture small fire lions. Although this didn't sound like it had anything to do with the head protector's death, Tagango had to have his reasons for starting from here. So Old 6 and Old 12 weren't in a rush. They sat there and listened carefully to Tagango's story. When he heard that it was extremely dangerous up the mountain, and that the fire lion almost took Tagango's life, Old 12 couldn't help but frown. Tagango, don't you know how important Tagango's safety is? Even Master values him so much. How could he let him do something so dangerous? If something goes wrong, can your Tagan family bear the responsibility? I'm sorry. Cold sweat appeared on Tagango's forehead. He didn't know much about that place, but if that place could turn House Tagan from a third-rate house to a top house in Riolita, then it could also turn House Tagan into a worthless house. He quickly explained, I didn't think it would be this dangerous, and the timing was all planned out. Who knew that Zhang Naipeo would help that little fire lion in the dark, delaying the time? That's why things ended up like this. Alright, Old 12, since Tagango is fine, let's not pursue this matter anymore. Just be careful in the future. Sixth brother waved his hand and interrupted Tagango. The most important thing now is to find out the cause of 13th brother's death. Sixth senior brother is right. 12 nodded and turned to Tagango. You're saying that Zhang Naipeo hid his strength, and that his wife looks very similar to the woman we're looking for? Yes. Tagan nodded and said, it is precisely because of this that the Great Protector wanted to go up the mountain alone after hearing about this matter. Could it be that those people are back? Old 12 looked at Old 6 with a questioning look. Sixth brother nodded and said, how about this? Call Taganlong over, and have him tell us the details of what happened in detail. Yes, sirs, please wait for a moment. I will personally call Taganlong over. Tagango quickly said. After saying that, Tagangao quickly left the house. When only Old 6 and Old 12 were left in the room, Old 12 said, Sixth senior brother, what do you think about this? Your guess should be correct. It should be that Sek's successor has returned. However, I don't know how he is related to the two people we are looking for. Is he their son, or did they come in disguise? Sixth brother hesitated for a moment before speculating. That's right. There are only these two possibilities. Old 12 said, but an Earth class mid-phase, a practitioner who hasn't even stepped into Golden class, without the help of the Great Fire Lion, even the 5th Protector could be easily taken care of. How could they fight against Old 13? This is what I'm curious about as well. That's why I want Taganlong to come and tell us some of the details, so that we can make the correct judgment. Old 6 said. Could it be that the Great Fire Lion helped? Old 12 frowned and asked. No way. Old 6 shook his head. That Great Fire Lion has some history with this sect, but he wouldn't interfere with human practitioners' matters. Spirit beasts, other than contracted spirit beasts, usually participate in human battles. Other spirit beasts aren't easily controlled by humans. Plus, this Great Fire Lion didn't do anything when we attacked this sect, so why would he do something now? During the siege of that sect, the 12th and 13th brothers hadn't reached the heaven rank yet, so they naturally didn't participate. Even the 6th brother was just a bystander, but he knew more secrets than the 12th brother. That's weird. Could it be that Zhang Naipeo helped the little Fire Lion secretly, and that's why the Great Fire Lion acted? Old 12 was confused as well. It's hard to say. Let's wait for Taganlong and see what he has to say. Old 6 said. It didn't take long before Tagangao returned. Taganlong followed behind him and quickly walked in. When he saw the two people in the room, he quickly cupped his fists and saluted. Taganlong greets the two uncle masters. Dispense with the formalities, Taganlong. You should know why we called you here, right? Old 12 asked. Tell us in detail what happened before the Great Protector left. Yes. Taganlong hurriedly nodded, and did not dare to hide anything. He recounted everything, including some details that Taganlong did not notice. In the end he carefully asked, Uncle Master, my master, he really? Yes, the Great Protector is dead. Old 12 sighed. It must be those two. Uncle Master. You must avenge my master. Taganlong said in grief when he heard the news. Whether it was them or not, it's hard to say for now, but this revenge must be taken. Now tell me the moves that Zhang Naipeo used in detail. Old 6 said suddenly. Zhang Naipeo's moves? Taganlong paused. He didn't pay much attention to Lin Yi's moves before, and now that he thought about it carefully he said, I remember that he had a move, and I think he shouted something like Frenzy Fist. Frenzy Fist? Old 6's eyes flashed fiercely. It really was the Frenzy Fist. Others might not know, but he knew that the Frenzy Fist was the secret technique of this sect, and since that Zhang Naipeo was using the Frenzy Fist, he had to be from this sect. Chapter 2250. Sixth senior brother, what's wrong? Is there something wrong with this Frenzy Fist? Old 12 quickly asked. This Frenzy Fist is a martial technique of that sect. Now we can basically confirm that these two people must have come for the treasure. 13th brother must have guessed this from the woman's appearance, so he went up the mountain to intercept the treasure. In the end, for some unknown reason, he met with an accident. 6th brother analyzed. So that's how it is. Old 12 said in grief. 6th senior brother, are we going up the mountain now to find those two people? We must get rid of them with our own hands and avenge Old 13. It's already dark now. Where are you going to find them? And so much time has passed. Even if we find the location of the incident based on Old 13's soul aura, those two people would have already run away. Old 6 waved his hand and said, "Tonight, we will bring some people to guard the foot of the mountain. Tomorrow morning, I will go up the mountain, and you will continue to guard. If those two people go down the mountain, you will be responsible for intercepting them and sending a signal flare. If I meet them on the mountain, I will also send a signal flare." "All right." Old 12 nodded in agreement. "Then let's go now." Following Tagengao's order, all the experts in the family left. Besides the old ancestor who was in seclusion, Tagansha, Taganmo, the 4 protectors, and Taganlong followed Old 6 and Old 12 and hurried all the way to the foot of the Wulonghout mountain range. The other families patrolling at the foot of the mountain range felt a little strange. They didn't know what the Tagan family was doing with such a large force, but no one asked. As long as it didn't interfere with their family's interests, they couldn't be bothered to care. If something happened to the Tagan family, and he asked them to send some strong men to help, then the gains would not make up for the losses. The 3 big families and 2 big gangs seemed united on the surface, so the Tagan family could do whatever they wanted. Fortunately, the Tagan family was only stationed at the foot of the mountain, and didn't make any other moves. On the Wulonghout mountain range, Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi followed the direction the heaven rank freak ran in, but they didn't find any traces of him. In front of us is the middle mountain range. We have already left the range of the upper mountain range. Looking at the dense forest in front, Lin Yi knew that they had arrived at the middle mountain range. The biggest difference between the middle mountain range and the upper mountain range was this dense forest. The upper part of the mountain range was filled with jagged rocks, but there weren't many trees. As for the middle part of the mountain range, it was filled with dense jungles. The dividing line was very obvious and could be seen at a glance. The middle mountain range was full of rugged rocks, but there weren't many trees. The middle mountain range was full of trees. After all, there were very few places to hide in the upper mountain range. There was no dense forest to with. They could easily. However, it was different in the middle mountain range. The middle mountain range was full of dense forest. The concealment here was very strong. Even if they stood at the highest point of the mountain range, it was impossible to see the situation in the middle mountain range from the main hall. Therefore, Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi entering the middle mountain range was equivalent to having an extra layer of protection. But it was different in the middle mountain range. The middle mountain range was full of dense forest. The concealment here was very strong. Even if they stood at the highest point of the mountain range, it was impossible to see the situation in the middle mountain range from the position of the main hall. Therefore, when Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi entered the middle mountain range, it was equivalent to having an extra layer of protection. "We didn't go back the way we came. Is there a problem?" Sun Jingyi looked at the forest around her. There was no road in the middle mountain range nearby. Obviously, people didn't come here often. It could even be said that no one had come here before. With the current situation, it's impossible to go back. Lin Yi shrugged and said, "The head protector is dead. Tagan House or his people will find us sooner or later. At that time, we'll have to walk the path we took to get here. It's too dangerous." "That's true." After hearing Lin Yi's words, Sun Jingyi's expression became serious. "Your weird master left. There's no one to help us. How are we going to go down the mountain? Will the Tagan family stop us at the foot of the mountain?" "I'm not sure." Lin Yi shook his head. To be honest, this was what Lin Yi was worried about. Although it wasn't impossible to go down the mountain from a place with no road, it was too dangerous. The middle mountain range. The big fire lion said that the middle mountain range didn't only have the big fire lion. There were other spirit beasts. Although the Skybolt pig was a mystic late-phase peak spirit beast, the big fire lion's strength had already reached heaven class. Only a heaven-class spirit beast could fight it. Otherwise, the spirit beasts had a strict hierarchy. If they weren't of the same level, how could they fight each other? This also proved that the big fire lion's opponent was also a heaven-class spirit beast. The Skybolt pig couldn't do anything and couldn't suppress the opponent. If they met, it would be really troublesome. They could only hope that they would mind their own business. Thinking about it, spirit beasts were all highly intelligent. Without any benefits, They wouldn't fight with Lin Yi for no reason. As long as they were reasonable, there shouldn't be a problem. But what Lin Yi was worried about was the lower mountain range. Although there weren't any spirit beasts there were some spirit beasts and poisonous insects. The Skybolt pig didn't have the murderous aura of General Weiwu. It was hard to say if it could suppress these spirit beasts. Lin Yi was fine. He was just afraid that Sun Jingyi would be in danger. If a spirit beast appeared and caught Lin Yi off guard, it would be a very troublesome thing. This Wulonghout mountain range, even the Tagan family's people didn't dare to casually go up the mountain from other routes. Presumably it should be very dangerous. So there are wolves in front and tigers behind. It's a bit hard to choose. Lin Yi smiled and said, "If you follow me, it shouldn't be a big problem. It's better to encounter spirit beasts than the Tagan family." After all, it wasn't a life and death feud with spirit beasts, but it was hard to say with the Tagan family. Especially if they wanted to take revenge for the Great Guardian. They would invite an expert and wouldn't let Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi go. By that time, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to deal with them. Lin Yi couldn't even deal with the Great Guardian. With the help of the heaven-rank strange man, they barely killed it. If there were a few more, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to go back. And Sun Jingyi didn't have any idea, so she just listened to Lin Yi. The Skybolt pig opened the way in front while Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi carefully followed behind. The purpose of this trip was basically achieved. The enemy was also killed. If Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi could go down the mountain from other routes and leave Ruilida town without being noticed, it would be the perfect ending. Chapter 2251. The two of them walked and stopped from time to time. Soon it was noon of the second day. The journey was smooth and they didn't encounter any danger or trouble. But the more it was so, the more Lin Yi didn't dare to be careless. The reason why there weren't any ferocious beasts in the middle of the mountain range was because this was the territory of the true spirit beasts. And in this area, there was no danger. That was the real danger. The two of them might have already stepped into the territory of another race of spirit beasts. Only in this way could this place be so safe without any ferocious beasts. Lin Yi planned to take a break first and let Sun Jingyi eat something while he observed the road. At the same time, on the side of the Tagan family, Old Six had already arrived at the top of the mountain range. Following Old 13's soul aura, he searched for him. When he saw the destroyed main hall, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He was very clear about what this main hall looked like. Although the main hall was already damaged during the encirclement of this sect, it definitely wasn't this serious. And looking at the traces of flying sand and stones on the ground, they were all newly formed. In other words, there should have been a great battle here not long ago. And this main hall was completely created in the battle. Old Six's heart suddenly tightened. What level of expert could cause this damage? It was at least a battle between experts with the strength of the peak late stage of heaven rank. Old 13 couldn't cause such huge damage, and his strength wasn't enough to destroy it. Could it be that an expert with the strength of the peak late stage of heaven rank participated in the battle? Old Six's heart tightened. He suddenly thought of the old madman who escaped that year. It was said that he appeared several times in the mountain range. But Old 13 and he didn't interfere with each other and didn't fight. At that time, Master's opinion was to keep him alive for now. Maybe they could find clues about the treasure from him. Could it be that the old madman joined the battle? Old Six frowned. If he had known earlier, he would have sent a few more people to kill that old madman. At least Old 13 wouldn't have lost his life. Although Old 13 was Old Six's younger brother, in the sect, the relationship between senior and junior brothers was similar to that between real brothers. So when Old 13 died, his feelings were similar to Old 12's, just that he was a little sadder. After observing the surroundings for a long time, Old Six didn't find any true chi fluctuation. After confirming that there shouldn't be any experts lying in ambush nearby, he quickly walked into the main hall. When he entered the main hall, the first thing that came into view was a huge super big hole. This huge pit made Old Six sigh again. Was this the work of a peak late stage heaven rank master? Even he couldn't do it, right? Perhaps only eldest senior brother, second senior brother, and master would be able to activate such a powerful move, right? The scene in front of him made Old Six feel a chill in his heart. Before he thought that he was an expert at the peak of heaven rank late phase, so he should be more than enough to deal with this matter. He felt that he should be able to deal with it by relying on his superior martial skills and strength. But now he felt that things had gone beyond his imagination. It was a little tricky. Even among peak late-stage heaven rank experts, there was a difference in strength. Some were infinitely close to the level of heavenly Tao, while others had just stepped into it. Moreover, it had a lot to do with everyone's aptitude, cultivation methods, martial skills and weapons. Although Old Six was an expert at the peak of heaven rank late phase, among the disciples in the sect, he could only be ranked 6th. The 5 experts at the peak of heaven rank late phase were all stronger than him. Worried about Old 13's situation, Old Six could only suppress the shock in his heart for the time being and continue to walk forward. But not far away, when he saw the situation in the big pit, even though he had seen many killing scenes, he couldn't help but feel numb. In the big pit, Old 13 died with his eyes wide open. His chin was already mutilated, his limbs were gone, and there was a big bloody hole in his chest and abdomen. It was as terrifying as it could be, as if he had been blown up by a bomb. This tragic way of death made Old Six's heart tremble. Could it be that the other party used some kind of nuclear weapon? It had to be known that ordinary bombs and grenades had little effect on heaven rank experts. Even if it was rocket launchers and armor-piercing bullets, they would only be injured if they weren't careful. But to be able to blow up a heaven rank expert, it must be something like a missile or a nuclear weapon. But if such a weapon was really used, would the Wulonghout mountain range still exist? Moreover, although Re-Illida town was a private armed town, and the small country above wouldn't interfere, even if it was the Tagan family, it wouldn't be easy for them to get their hands on atomic bombs and missiles. It was almost impossible. Therefore, in his heart, he was still inclined to believe that it was done by an expert. But what kind of expert was this? Originally, Old Six came here with the idea of avenging his brother, but now his desire for revenge was no longer so urgent. He had to find out who had such great power and caused such huge damage. This person was simply a formidable enemy to the sect. All these years, the sect had been planning this big thing, and it was about to come true. They couldn't afford to make any mistakes at this time. With that thought, Old Six first put Old 13's body into the bag. As for the incomplete body parts, there was no way to find them anymore. At the moment, only Old 13's body could be seen. He really wanted to know the cause of Old 13's death, but he was more concerned about his own safety and the safety of Old 12 and the others at the foot of the mountain. He quickly took out a piece of paper and wrote on it, "The enemy is too strong. If there are strong people coming down the mountain, don't act rashly. Mainly focus on Zhang Naipeo and that guy, but if there are strong people with them, don't be rash." Once he was done, Sixth Brother took out a bird that looked like a carrier pigeon from his bosom. However, this was not a carrier pigeon, but an ancient spiritual beast that was used to send messages to various sects in ancient times. Whether it was in terms of intelligence or speed, a carrier pigeon was far superior to a carrier pigeon. However, there weren't many of them left in the sect, and this time Old Six brought it out so that he could send the news back to his master. He folded the paper and tied it to the leg of the ancient bird. Old Six let go and ordered, Go find Old 12. Chapter 2252. Since the enemy was stronger than him, he naturally wouldn't show his face in public. He decided to follow the investigation and try his best to avoid a direct confrontation with the enemy. Revenge was definitely necessary, but it might not be this time. He had to figure out who the enemy was first. If he wasn't a match for them, he could let his master, big senior brother, and the others take action. If not, there were still those elders, martial uncles, and martial uncles. They could always take revenge. Thinking of this, Old Six hid in the Wulonghout mountain range and prepared to secretly look for clues about the enemy at the foot of the mountain. When Old 12 received the news from the ancient bird, his face couldn't help but change. He had the same thought as Old Six. No matter how powerful the enemy was, with Old Six, a peak late-stage heaven rank expert, wouldn't it be easy to capture them? But Old Six said that the enemy was very powerful, so he naturally didn't dare to be negligent. He rubbed the information in his hand and turned it into ashes. Old 12 said to Tagango, "Pay close attention to people going down the mountain. If there's anyone suspicious, immediately report to me. Don't make a decision on your own. Yes. Tagengo nodded in response. On the Wulonghout mountain range, it wasn't only Lin Yi and Old 12. There were many other adventurers going up the mountain. Some of these adventurers were from the Adventurers Guild. Some belonged to other families and gangs. And some were herb gatherers from small forces. There were also normal adventurers going up the mountain every day. These Tagengo family couldn't stop them. Although Old 6 and Old 12, these two powerful experts, were there, they obviously didn't want to expose their strength. Tagengo family also deliberately kept a low profile, so they naturally didn't stop them. Fortunately, the two people they were looking for were a man and a woman. The man was heroic and the woman was beautiful. The servants and guards of the Tagengo family, who were guarding the foot of the mountain, had a portrait in their hands. Although the portrait wasn't very similar, at least they could be recognized at a glance. On the mountain, after Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi took a short rest, they got up and continued to move forward in the middle of the mountain range. Suddenly, the jade pendant on Lin Yi's chest suddenly sent a sharp warning signal. Skybolt Pig also seemed to have noticed something wrong, and started yelling loudly. But it was all too late. A huge net fell from the sky and covered Lin Yi, Sun Jingyi, and Skybolt Pig. Lin Yi subconsciously wanted to lift the net, but it was as if the net was alive. It quickly closed in and tied him, Sun Jingyi, and the Skybolt Pig up like rice dumplings. In Songshan, during the few days that Lin Yi was away, some things happened quietly. Hidden Right family. Yu Coiling Tiger solemnly handed the information he got from Lin Yi to Yu Zhentian. Yu Zhentian did not dare to neglect it, and quickly took it. Are you sure this time that it's really an alchemist's notes? Uncle, I'm sure. It's the alchemist's notes. It's not the kind of thing that deceives people. I looked through it and benefited a lot. Right, Panhu nodded. That's good. Yu Coiling Tiger breathed a sigh of relief. We were tricked by Lin Yi last time. This time it's our turn. We used a useless medicine cauldron to exchange for Boss Bai's alchemist's notes. This business is worth it. Wait for me. I'll present it to your grandfather now. Yes. Right, Panhu nodded and sat aside, waiting for how his grandfather would reward him later. Yu Zhentian did not stop. He directly took the alchemist's notes that Yu Coiling Tiger handed over, and went to Old Master Yu's room. Zhentian, have you seen it? How is it? Old Master Yu asked. I didn't have time to look at it before it was presented to me immediately. Yu Zhentian did not dare to neglect. Although he wanted to see it, he also knew that Old Master Yu was waiting. How could he dare to waste time? However, he added. Right, Panhu took a few glances and said that it was indeed an alchemist's notes. I benefited a lot. Old Master Yu nodded and took the alchemist's notes from Yu Zhentian. He flipped through it with a smile. However, after reading a few pages, Old Master Yu's face became ugly. As he flipped through more pages, Old Master Yu's face became gloomier and gloomier. In the end, it became extremely ugly. Father, what's wrong? Is there a problem with this alchemist's notes? Yu Zhentian also saw the change in his father's face and asked curiously. This alchemist's notes. It's the alchemist's notes from the Heavenly Elixir sect. Old Master Yu said with certainty after flipping through a few more pages. What? Yu Zhentian frowned. You said, this alchemist's notes is from the Heavenly Elixir sect? Yes, come with me. Old Master Yu seemed to want to confirm it for the last time. He stood up and walked to his study. Yu Zhentian did not dare to neglect and carefully followed behind Old Master Yu. They entered Old Master Yu's study together. This was a restricted area for family members. This study collected a lot of precious elixir recipes and alchemy materials, as well as some medicinal cauldrons, precious medicinal herbs, etc. It was almost a small treasure house inside. It hid all the essence of the Yu family. Even Yu Zhentian, the young master heir of the Yu family, could not step into this place without Old Master Yu's permission. After entering the study, Yu Zhentian did not look around. He just stood at the side with his head down. Although he was curious, he did not show it. Old Master Yu quickly walked to the front of a bookshelf and took a thread-bound book from it. A few big words were clearly written on it. Heavenly Elixir Sect's Alchemist Notes. After taking it out, Old Master Yu couldn't wait to look at it and compare it. Although he was mentally prepared, Old Master Yu's face was still extremely ugly when he saw the two identical alchemist's notes at this time. It was as if his mother had died. Of course, his mother had died a long time ago. It should be like his mother had died again. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same as the alchemist's notes from the Heavenly Elixir sect. Old Master Yu put the thread-bound book back and threw the copy in his hand on the desk. He gritted his teeth in anger. Lin Yi, this little b*** starred. I was tricked by him again. This. Although Yu Zhentian did not read the contents of the alchemist's notes, since Old Master Yu said it was the same, then it must be the same. He could only smile bitterly. The Yu family was tricked by Lin Yi again. However, who could be blamed for this? Chapter 2253. However, he never expected that Lin Yi would casually exchange this precious information as trash. In theory, the alchemist's notes from Heavenly Elixir sect were worth the things that were exchanged. It was just a few sets of materials, and a broken medicine cauldron that couldn't be repaired. It was already very cheap to exchange for this information. One had to know that the Yu family had worked hard for Heavenly Elixir sect for so many years and paid a huge price to exchange for this information. The key problem was that the hidden Yu family already had this information, so it was naturally worthless. This thing could be replicated. It was precious at the beginning, but later on, it was no different from waste paper. Forget it. You and Coiling Tiger don't know this information. I don't blame you. Old Master Yu waved his hand and sighed. Let's go and ask Coiling Tiger what did Lin Yi say this time. Yes, father. While Yu Zhentian breathed a sigh of relief, he secretly regretted that the information that was exchanged this time was already in his family's possession. As for the broken medicine cauldron and the few sets of materials, the Yu family didn't care much about it. They were just a little sullen. Old Master Yu and Yu Zhentian walked out. Yu Coiling Tiger still didn't know what was going on. He thought that he could get a reward. Just as he got up and wanted to speak, he saw his grandfather and uncle with a gloomy face. He was suddenly a little inexplicable. Coiling Tiger, this time we were cheated by Lin Yi again. Yu Zhentian saw Yu Coiling Tiger's stunned expression and explained. Ah, what? Cheated by Lin Yi again? It can't be right? Yu Coiling Tiger was a little inexplicable after listening. I clearly checked this information. It is indeed an alchemist's notes, and it is a very useful notes. I just casually read a few pages and I benefited a lot. How could I be cheated? There is no problem with this alchemist's notes. It is indeed a good note. But the key is that our family already has this note. Yu Zhentian smiled bitterly. Even if Yu Coiling Tiger checked it carefully and exchanged it with Lin Yi, he wouldn't have found any problems, right? After all, Yu Coiling Tiger hadn't read this information. Yu Zhentian didn't even read much. He would probably make the same mistake. What? Our family already has one? Right? Coiling Tiger blurted out in shock. This alchemist's notes are actually written by an alchemist from the Heavenly Elixir sect. Old Man Yu sighed, waved his hand and said, It's just strange. How did it end up in Lin Yi's hands? Tell me in detail. What did you say to Lin Yi? Don't miss out on any details. Yes. Yupan, whose heart was in awe. He quickly and carefully recalled the conversation with Lin Yi. He repeated it to Old Man Yu without missing a word. The situation at the time was like this. Elder Yu listened to Yupanhu's narration and frowned. After a while he said, This Lin Yi is really scheming. I reckon that Lin Yi must have known that this is the Heavenly Elixir sect's alchemist experience notes. That's why he gave it to that Han Jingjing to read, and then changed it to you. Otherwise, if it's really Boss Bai's alchemist's notes, even if he exchanged it to you, he must be secretive. It's impossible to let a third person know or see it. Yupanhu thought about it carefully at this time. Indeed, this thing was so important. Without Boss Bai's permission, would Lin Yi let Han Jingjing see it? The only explanation was that Lin Yi knew that this information was actually the Heavenly Elixir sect's alchemist's notes, not Boss Bai's legacy, so he gave it to Han Jingjing. What a joke. She thought that she had something on Lin Yi, forcing him to give her the information. She was too stupid. However, things were often like this. He couldn't see it clearly at the time, but he regretted it afterwards. Grandpa, Right? Coiling Tiger's face was a little red. He didn't expect to get back a piece of trash. Did he still want to claim credit? This is not your fault. It's Lin Yi who is too cunning. Old master, you said. Fortunately, we didn't lose much this time. It's not as big as the first time. A broken antique medicine cauldron that can't be repaired, and some alchemy materials. These things that can be bought with money are nothing to us. When Right Coiling Tiger heard Old Master Yu say this, he was relieved, but he didn't dare to claim credit anymore. How about this? After you return to school, continue to pay attention to Lin Yi's movements and see if Boss Bai continues to give him information. If he gives him information again, you still find a way to exchange it. Old Master Yu said after thinking for a while. Exchange again? This time not only Right Coiling Tiger, but Right Jintian also asked in surprise. Of course. Old Master Yu nodded and said, of course, the premise is that we use these things that are not of much use to our family to exchange with him. Things like trash materials, and the like, good medicine cauldrons and finished elixirs. Don't use them to exchange. But, what if he takes out another deceptive thing? It's not worth it, right? Right Coiling Tiger asked doubtfully. From the information this time, the level of information that Boss Bai gave to Lin Yi is increasing bit by bit. Last time it was the entry level. This time it's the insights. Next time, even if it's not his own insights, it will probably be the insights of an out-of-print ancient book. When the time comes, it will be of great use to our Yu family. Old Master Yu said. Anyway, we don't lose anything by exchanging with him. We just get some materials. That's true. Right Coiling Tiger nodded and breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that not only did his grandfather not pursue his mistakes, but he encouraged him to continue doing so, which made Right Coiling Tiger feel at ease. That's not right, father. According to what Coiling Tiger just said, Lin Yi and Boss Bai said that he doesn't know alchemy. He can't even control the alchemy fire. What use does he have for the medicine cauldron and alchemy materials? Right Jintian suddenly thought of an unreasonable place. I'm also thinking about this. Old Master Yu waved his hand and said, there are two explanations. One is that Lin Yi is hiding it. He actually knows alchemy. After all, this kid is very cunning. It's not surprising that he's lying. The second possibility is that Lin Yi doesn't know alchemy at all. He wants those materials for Han Jingjing. Maybe she's a good candidate for alchemy. The first possibility isn't realistic, right? Right Coiling Tiger said. He doesn't need to hide whether he knows alchemy or not. This is not like his own strength, where he can pretend to be a pig to eat the tiger. What's there to hide in alchemy? If he knows alchemy, he can win people's hearts and win over the other hidden families. He doesn't need to hide at all, does he? Chapter 2254. Actually, I'm more inclined to the second possibility. Old Master Yu said. Moreover, Lin Yi was willing to give the information to Han Jingjing. If Boss Bai didn't approve and instruct it, it wouldn't make sense. Boss Bai is a more strict person. Even if he is more optimistic about Lin Yi, he will be disgusted if Lin Yi simply gives his things to others unless he agrees. So, that Han Jingjing might be an alchemist? Yupan, who didn't pay much attention to Han Jingjing before. In his impression, Han Jingjing was a pretty but silly girl. But now that he listened to his grandfather's analysis and thought about it carefully, it was really possible. It's very likely. Old Master Yu said. Han Jingjing. Yupan, who muttered this name silently. After you go back to school, pay attention to this Han Jingjing. If she really knows alchemy, then you must find a way to rope her in. Don't let her become Lin Yi's assistant. Old Master Yu pondered for a moment and made a decision. Even if we take a step back, we have to find a way to destroy the relationship between her and Lin Yi. I understand. Yupan, who listened to Old Master Yu's instructions and couldn't help but smile. Not to mention that Han Jingjing was beautiful. If she knew alchemy, then wouldn't it be great if he hooked up with her? In the future, his status in the hidden Yu family would also skyrocket. As a matter of fact, there weren't many women who knew alchemy. If Han Jingjing became his wife, then she would inevitably be one of the elders of the Yu family in the future. At that time, although Yupan, who wasn't the family master, his status in the family couldn't be underestimated. Old Master Yu saw the smile on Yupan Hu's face and naturally guessed this kid's dirty thoughts. But he didn't care. If Han Jingjing was really an alchemist and had the talent for alchemy, Then he wouldn't object to Yupanhu pursuing her. He would even help him and lend him a helping hand. As for whether Yupanhu's status in the family would increase because of Han Jingjing's addition, old master Yu did not care. He valued the overall interests of the family. If Yu Zhentian took over as the family head in the future, and could not even handle Yupanhu and his wife, then it would be better to let Yupanhu be the family head. A family head must have a tolerant attitude. If a family wanted to grow, it couldn't be achieved by suppressing other family members. They had to support each other and progress together. Only in this way could the family prosper. Otherwise, if he was the only powerful family head and everyone else was a coward, then the family would not be far from destruction. Let's stop here. Elder Yu waved his hand and said faintly, "Next, let's talk about the Kong family." The Kong family? Yupanhu was stunned. He didn't know why he suddenly brought up the matter of the Kong family. But looking at first uncle's expression of understanding, he must have received the news beforehand. Since they told him, it meant that old master Yu and first uncle had already regarded him as a core member of the family. This made Yupanhu excited. Although he knew that his position as the family head was still far away, his grandfather was still alive. Even if his grandfather passed away, first uncle would take over as the family head. When it came to his generation, he didn't know how long he would have to wait. It was not bad to get an elder position first. Yes, it's the Kong family. Old master Yu nodded and said, "Zhentian, tell Panhu about young master Tian taking away Kong Mingming from the Kong family." "Yes, father." Yu Zhentian turned to Yu Coiling Tiger and told him about Sky Elixir Sect's young master Sky Silkworm's purpose in coming to House Yu, as well as how he took Kong Xiaoming away. Of course, he left out some important details. After all, Yu Coiling Tiger was still young and didn't need to know so much. This was also what he and his father had discussed. Now, although they didn't know if the Kong family could prosper in the future, if Kong Mingming was really accepted as a disciple by the fifth elder, and was valued by Tian Can, then the possibility of him becoming the next elder of the Heavenly Elixir sect was very high. Then the situation of one person in the Kong family ascending to the heavens would also happen. Although the Kong family's foundation was relatively weak, and they didn't have any foundation, they still had someone above them. As long as Kong Mingming became prosperous, the Kong family would become prosperous sooner or later. Therefore, regardless of whether Kong Mingming could be valued or not, the Yu family must be prepared in advance to befriend the Kong family. If Kong Mingming was valued, then the Kong family's development would be unstoppable. There was no harm in befriending the Yu family and the Kong family. If Kong Mingming wasn't valued, then it didn't matter. Anyway, the Kong family had helped the Yu family a lot, so they could treat it as repayment. "Grandpa, uncle, do you mean that I should be on good terms with the Kong family?" Yupanhu wasn't too stupid. He immediately understood what his grandpa and uncle meant. "Yes." Old master Yu nodded and said, "If Kong Mingming is valued, the Kong family's rise to the sky is unstoppable. There is no harm in building a good relationship as soon as possible. But if Kong Mingming isn't valued, we can treat it as an emotional investment. It can also make the Kong family work harder for us." "Then is it just me?" Yupanhu was somewhat inexplicable. Why did he have to do all the family's matters recently? Does Grandpa want to train me? That's not right. This matter, the Heavenly Elixir sect asked us to keep it a secret for the time being. If your uncle and I come forward, the Kong family will definitely be suspicious. Kong Like I, that old guy, is not a vegetarian. He is very shrewd. If he thinks of something, it will be difficult to handle. Old Master Yu explained. So, it's just right for you to go. But before we get further news from the Heavenly Elixir sect, you don't have to be too enthusiastic. Just keep in touch with the third generation of the Kong family. I understand. Yupanhu nodded. Who do you want me to contact? The third generation of the Kong family, Kong Mingming. Didn't he leave with the Heavenly Elixir sect? The third generation of the Kong family, there is also a Kong Xiaolong. He is currently studying for his PhD in biology at Donghai Industry University. But because of his internship, he wasn't in school. He might return to school to write his thesis. Try to get in touch with him. Yu Zhentian passed a document to Yupanhu and said, "Oh, this guy looks quite gentle." Yupanhu took the document and flipped through it. But when he saw the marriage between the Kong family and the secular Shao family, and that Zhaolong's fiancé was Wang Xinyan, his eyes widened. Dem no way? This green-haired tortoise's girlfriend is Wang Xinyan? What's wrong? Yu Zhentian frowned. What's the relationship between you and this Wang Xinyan? Chapter 2255. Wang Xinyan? Lin Yi's girlfriend? Yu Zhentian paused. Isn't his girlfriend Tang Yin? How did it become Wang Xinyan? I don't know, but he and Wang Xinyan sit together in class every day. They're a couple. I'm sure they're close. Yu Coiling Tiger said. Plus, everyone says that these two are related. I think it's true. Don't get involved in this. Lin Yi isn't easy to deal with, and we still need him. We're preparing to get the information from him. So, don't get involved in the grudge between him and Zhaolong. We'll see how it goes. Elder Yu said after a moment of silence. All right, I know. Yu Coiling Tiger nodded. Donghai City's outskirts, in a heavily guarded manner, Jiang Wen was casually playing with his phone, reading a novel called Very Pure Very Flirtatious Prequel. The more he read, the more excited he got. He felt that there was a villain called Li Boiliang in the novel. He really admired him too much. Just as his blood was boiling, Scorpion walked in. When bro. Oh, it's Big Scorpion, what's wrong? Good news? Jiang Wen asked. Did the professor make some breakthrough on his side? When bro is wise. Good news. Scorpion gave a thumbs up and said with admiration. Indeed, Professor Yin told me to inform Wenbro that the flaws Wenbro mentioned before were solved by him and his fellow disciples, and the experiment was successful. Oh, not bad. Does that mean that even Lin Yi's pressure point technique is useless against our test subject? Jiang Wen asked excitedly as he thought about it. Yes, the 01 drug has been completed, and the new drug is named 02. The test subject injected with the drug is more durable than before, and he's not afraid of pressure point techniques. The drug has destroyed the pressure points. Big Scorpion said. This way it's the same as strengthening the defense. Now it can at least defend against 10 consecutive attacks from a heaven rank initial phase master. However, the sacrifice is also very obvious. The attack power of the test subject is about the same as before. It can easily kill anyone below the early phase of Earth class. It can barely kill anyone between the early phase and the mid-phase of Earth class. It can take down anyone between the mid-phase and the late phase of Earth class. As for those above the late phase of Earth class, it can't kill them for the time being, but it can drag them out for a while. Very good. Jiang Wen didn't feel regretful at all. Instead, he was overjoyed. The attack didn't increase, but the defense did. Yeah, that Lin Yi is just an Earth class mid-phase master. Even if he's stronger than normal masters, our test subject can still hurt him. Scorpion nodded. But this drug is still in its early stages, the production success rate isn't high. Don't worry, take your time to perfect it. Oh right, has the test subject been created? I'll give one to Li Biaohan to see how good he is. Jiang Wen said. I can start my kidnapping plan now. Alright bro. I'll go tell the professor to get a test subject. Scorpion replied. What about Li Biaohan? Get the test subject out. I'll contact Li Biaohan myself. Jiang Wen said. Yes. Scorpion nodded and left respectfully. Jiang Wen, on the other hand, had a cold smile on his face. Lin Yi, don't get too cocky. I'll get rid of you sooner or later, and Meng Yao will be mine too. With the professor's research, Jiang Wen's ambition grew bigger and bigger. He wasn't satisfied with the current situation anymore. These test subjects were just the beginning. There would be test subjects 03, 04, and 05 in the future. Killing Lin Yi in one hit wouldn't be a dream anymore. Li Biaohan was in the boxing club when he received Jiang Wen's call. Because of Lin Yi's challenge last time, the entire club was in a state of panic. Seeing that Audi Q7 parked in front of the club every day, many of the members were terrified, afraid that Lin Yi would come looking for trouble again. There was no helping it. Even Li Biaohan suffered a loss. Li Biaohan tried his best to calm them down, but there were still some new members leaving the boxing club. Li Biaohan was a little annoyed seeing these new members leaving, but there was nothing he could do. There were fewer people helping him collect protection fees and forcing him to buy and sell. Naturally, Li Biaohan's income also decreased. He needed manpower to sell and extort new students from their dorms. Seeing his income decrease, Li Biaohan was in a bad mood. His phone rang, and Li Biaohan was a little excited when he saw the caller ID. He knew that Jiang Wen had been planning something big for him to do. There had to be some progress with the call. When bro, Li Biaohan picked up the phone respectfully. Come over now. The thing I mentioned to you last time can be carried out now, Jiang Wen said. Yes. Li Biaohan was overjoyed and quickly agreed. Half an hour later, Li Biaohan appeared in Jiang Wen's room respectfully. When bro, Scorpion bro. Alright, no need for the formality. Sit down and talk. Jiang Wen waved his hand. I need people who can do things, not people who flatter me. I'll need you, Scorpion, and the others to cooperate with me sincerely. You'll be in charge of finding and investigating the target, and Scorpion will send test subject 02 to do the kidnapping. Yes. Li Biaohan nodded excitedly. When bro, I've already chosen the first target. You've chosen? What does your family do? How much money can you squeeze out? Let me tell you. We need at least 10 million for this kidnapping. It's meaningless if it's too little. Jiang Wen's appetite was huge. He was used to doing big business without any capital, so he asked for 10 million straight away. It's Wang Xinyan, Li Biaohan said. Wang Xinyan? Who is she? Jiang Wen wasn't familiar with the name. What does her family do? How much money can they take out? That's Wang Xinyan, Lin Yi's girlfriend from school. Her family's in the medical business. 10 million is easy. Li Biaohan had found out about Wang Xinyan's family background during this time. He hated Lin Yi to the guts, so his first target was the people around Lin Yi. Chapter 2256. But as much as he hated Lin Yi, he didn't let it get to his head. Touching Lin Yi's woman. What if Lin Yi intervenes? Wouldn't it be easy for us to fail? Who's going to take responsibility if we die before we succeed? When bro, don't worry. Normally, I wouldn't dare touch Lin Yi's girlfriend. After all, that guy's too powerful. Who would want to mess with him? Li Biaohan waved his hand. But I've asked around. Lin Yi's gone on a long leave, and we don't know when he'll be back. He hasn't been to school for a few days now. I've asked my men to look into it, and the people close to Lin Yi all proved that Lin Yi's gone out. Plus, I've also observed Meng Yao. She's going to school with Yushu, Han Jingjing, and Han Xiaoqiao. The driver isn't Lin Yi, it's a chauffeur. Oh, Lin Yi's gone out. Jiang Wen's heart skipped a beat when he heard the news. If possible, he didn't mind causing some trouble for Lin Yi. Kidnapping Wang Xinyan would serve as a way to annoy Lin Yi. Kidnapping Lin Yi's girlfriend when he wasn't around and extorting a huge sum of money. Lin Yi probably wouldn't be able to find any clues when he came back. That's right, when bro, this is a great opportunity, Li Biaohan said. I've already looked into it. Lin Yi's definitely not around. Oh, let's do it then. Jiang Wen nodded. But let's make this clear. Other than kidnapping, don't do anything else to that Wang Xinyan. That Lin Yi is a motherfucking maniac. If Xinyan really is his girlfriend, we can kidnap her, but don't do anything else. Lin Yi will kill anyone he suspects. He doesn't even need evidence. He might just kill everyone he hates in a fit of rage. That'd be fucked. I understand when bro. Let's just ask for money and annoy Lin Yi. I won't cause any trouble. Even if Jiang Wen didn't say it, Li Biaohan wouldn't dare do anything. He was actually quite afraid of Lin Yi. Here, let's discuss Xinyan's schedule with Scorpion, and come up with a plan. We'll kidnap her in a place with a lot of people, and it'd be best if everyone could prove that she was kidnapped. That way, we'll be able to get the ransom easily. Jiang Wen wasn't afraid of failure. With test subject number 2, who could stop him? Alright. Li Biaohan nodded. Jiang Wen waved his hand and sent Li Biaohan and Scorpion out of the room. He continued reading, very pure, very flirtatious prequel on his phone. Li Buoyang was a genius. The more he read, the more Jiang Wen admired him. He swore to be a villain like Li Buoyang. The day before the weekend, Wang Xinyan received an invitation from Meng Yao. She was invited to her house. Xinyan couldn't help but feel a little fearful at the thought. Meng Yao didn't invite her personally, but Han Jingjing had told her about it. It wasn't a formal invitation, but Xinyan's heart was still beating like a drum. Linny was away, and Mengyao was inviting her over. What did she mean? Was it a friendly invitation? Or was it a trap? Or was she trying to figure out her relationship with Linny? Han Jingjing was only in charge of passing on the message. She didn't say anything else after that, but Wang Xinyan's heart was in a mess. They had agreed to meet at the parking lot after school, but Wang Xinyan was distracted again. She didn't pay attention in class, and she didn't take many notes. Wang Xinyan looked at the departing boss by and put away her textbook. She shook her head. She promised Lin Yi that she would take notes for him, but today Xinyan turned back to look at Han Jingjing, only to see that the girl was still playing with her tablet. Xinyan was hoping that Han Jingjing would take the initiative to call her, but Han Jingjing was so engrossed in her work that she didn't even seem to notice that class had ended. Jingjing, let's go downstairs now? Xinyan said helplessly. Class is over already? Han Jingjing raised her head in a daze, looking at the empty classroom. She smiled embarrassedly. Sorry, I was too engrossed. Let's go downstairs now. Yeah. Xinyan subconsciously agreed. She knew that if it was a blessing, then it wouldn't be a curse. She couldn't just ignore Mengyao's invitation, could she? She carefully walked out of the classroom with Han Jingjing, as if she was a daughter-in-law visiting her home for the first time. Han Jingjing, on the other hand, didn't seem to notice that. Xinyan sis, I heard that Yao sis prepared a feast tonight. Right, do you like Western food? It's all right. Xinyan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Han Jingjing, on the other hand, didn't feel any pressure at all. But Xinyan, where was she in the mood to eat? In actuality, Mengyao didn't have any ulterior motives for inviting Xinyan over. But according to Han Jingjing, Linny and Xinyan were very close in school, sticking together in class all the time. Mengyao thought that there was an 80% chance that something was going on between Xinyan and Linny. While Linny wasn't home, she decided to probe Xinyan a bit. Xinyan. Mengyao greeted Xinyan with a smile when she saw her and Han Jingjing walking over. Mengyao Yushu hello. Xinyan's expression was a little unnatural, a little shy. Wu Qintian. We've met before. Qintian nodded politely to Xinyan. Back in Yanjing, Xinyan was Xiaolong's girlfriend, so he didn't really mind. But now that Xinyan was Lin Yi's girlfriend, he didn't dare be rude. Xinyan couldn't help but think of the time when she had a meal with Xiaolong in Yanjing. Xiaolong and the Xiao family were all trying their best to please this man. And now he was Lin Yi's follower? This Lin Yi sure was something, getting followers everywhere. But before Xinyan could say anything, a black van without a license plate came barreling toward them. It screeched to a stop right next to Xinyan, and an expressionless man in black jumped out. He grabbed Xinyan's arm and pulled her into the van. Chapter 2257. The black-clothed man didn't answer Qintian's question at all. He ignored Qintian and the others as he dragged Xinyan into the van. Die. Qintian was pissed, and this guy was ignoring him, kidnapping someone right in front of him. Did he think he, an Earth class early phase, was a free lunch? The next moment, Qintian grabbed the man and roared. Where do you think you're going? The black-clothed man looked at Qintian coldly and pushed him hard, causing Qintian to stumble. The burly man in black got into the car, and the black van sped away. Qintian was shocked. He thought it was just a normal kidnapping, but he didn't expect the guy to be this strong. He didn't use all of his strength when he grabbed Lin Yi's arm, but he was still the inheritor of the Iron Fist arts. Lin Yi being able to break free meant that he wasn't simple at all. He was at least a practitioner. Miss Chu, bring everyone back first. Qintian said hurriedly as he ran towards the direction of the van. Of course, he didn't think he could catch up to the van on foot, since he was only an Earth class early phase. He didn't have that kind of speed. But when they got out of the school and reached a place with no one around, Qintian yelled, Feng! The purple thunderbolt beast appeared in front of Qintian. The beast and General Weiwu had been following Qintian secretly for the past 2 days. Qintian was his bodyguard on the surface, and the beast and General Weiwu were his bodyguards in the dark. Qintian couldn't catch up to the van, but the purple thunderbolt beast had no problem. Qintian sat on the beast and said, Go after that black van. The beast wasn't happy about being ridden by Qintian, but when it thought about how he was the follower of its master, and that he was under orders to protect its master's friend, The beast whimpered and ran towards the direction the black van disappeared to. It was already dark, and the purple thunderbolt beast didn't have to worry about being discovered. Even if someone did, they'd only see a shadow, and they didn't know what it was. Scorpion couldn't communicate with the second test subject, but Chen-Tian's interference made him realize that Chen-Tian was probably a practitioner, but he wasn't a match for the second test subject. This was an oversight. Fortunately, test subject number 2 was more powerful. Otherwise, the kidnapping might have really failed. It wouldn't be easy to explain to Jiang Wen if things went badly. As for Li Biaohan, he was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. At this moment, he was sitting in a black santana, watching the whole kidnapping process from afar. When he saw Chen-Tian intervene, he jumped in fright. He was afraid of being exposed. This didn't just affect his income. It also affected his position in front of Jiang Wen. Now he was reduced to the situation of driving a scrapped Santana off the line with a taxi. As the boss of several schools in the university town, it was very miserable. He had no choice. He had lost a car and a lot of money to Lin Yi. Where would he find the money to buy a new car? He could only drive a scrapped Santana that cost 2,000, stepping on the gas pedal and emitting black smoke. So when he saw that Chen-Tian failed to stop him and tried to stop him again, Li Biaohan jumped in fright and quickly called Scorpion. Hello. Scorpion picked up the phone. What's up? Scorpion bro, the person who stopped you just went after them. Li Biaohan said. What? Went after them? Scorpion paused. A car? I didn't see AX5 following them. No, they walked. Li Biaohan said. Holy sh*T. Scorpion suddenly screamed as if he saw a ghost. He looked at the rearview mirror with his eyes wide open. Previously, he didn't feel that there was anything wrong. However, as his car turned into an alley, trouble came, and it was big. A man and a beast appeared behind him. Wasn't that the man who stopped test subject number 2 from kidnapping Xinyan? He didn't know what his mount was. It wasn't a horse, it wasn't a cow. It was more like a unicorn from the legends. Where did this person come from? Even if he was driving a tank or armored vehicle, it wouldn't be as terrifying and impactful to Big Mule when he was riding this strange thing. And that wasn't all. The thing that scared him the most was that this thing ran faster than a car, catching up in an instant. It seemed like it was running neck and neck with them. The man and beast had disappeared from the rearview mirror, because when Scorpion turned around, he saw Chen-Tian smiling at him from the back of the beast. Fuck. Big Scorpion stepped on the gas pedal to the floor. Unfortunately, his car's performance wasn't up to par. He didn't expect such a big monster to chase after him. He was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat and had goosebumps all over. Chen-Tian could only scare him a little, but he didn't dare force him to stop or let the beast flip the car. After all, Xinyan was still in the car, and she wasn't a practitioner. If the car flipped, she wouldn't be able to survive. So, Chen-Tian could only wait for Scorpion to stop the car himself. He could only make his move when he did. Scorpion looked at the monster that was running neck and neck with him. Bioweapons were scary enough, weren't they? And this thing came out of nowhere. Scorpion had no choice but to call Jiang Wen as he drove. When bro, it's bad, a monster is following me. What? Monster? Jiang Wen was enjoying his novel when Scorpion's words came out of nowhere. What monster? You're not awake yet, are you? No one bro, there really is a monster, a man and a horse. That monster runs really fast, and it has a horn on its head. Scorpion said. Oh. Wait, what did you say? That monster has a horn on its head? It can't be the purple lightning beast, can it? Jiang Wen, too, heard about the whole process of the Hidden House Summit, and that Lin Yi had tricked a spirit beast from the Gone Mountain sect. It was the purple lightning beast, and he heard that it was quite fast. Purple lightning beast? What's that? Scorpion paused. Stop the car and let test subject number 2 fight them. If subject number 2 loses, you give Xinyan back to them, but if you win, we'll continue the kidnapping. Jiang Wen said after a moment of silence. Chapter 2258. After all, the purple thunderbolt beast was a factor he didn't consider before. He didn't think that there would be someone who could control the beast when Lin Yi wasn't home. And so, Jiang Wen told Scorpion to stop running and let test subject number 2 spar with the purple lightning beast. It'd be a good opportunity to test subject number two's strength. Although the medicine was expensive, Jiang Wen didn't care about the money. Yes. Scorpion was scared, but since Jiang Wen asked him to stop, he had no choice but to find a place with no one and stop the car. However, Scorpion didn't get out of the car. He let test subject number 2 get out of the car, and then he held Xinyan hostage, observing the situation below the car. If anything went wrong, he'd drive away immediately. Xinyan was already tied to the car, so he wasn't afraid of her running away. Seeing Scorpion stop the car, Chen Tian let out a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that Scorpion would drive off the car. He wouldn't be able to do anything if that happened. He couldn't stop the car by force and could only follow from the side. It would be fine if he kept driving in the back alleys, but if he went to the downtown area, he and the purple thunderbolt beast wouldn't be able to show themselves. Seeing test subject number 2, the man in black, get off the car, Chen Tian immediately became alert. This person in front of him was able to push his hand away so easily. His cultivation was definitely not low. Chen Tian knew that the violet thunderbolt beast was stronger than him, and so he gave it a look, telling it to deal with test subject number 2 while he got on the car to save Xinyan. But just as Chen Tian came up with a plan, the man in black started attacking him the moment he got off the car. There was no room for negotiation or extra words, and he threw a punch at Chen Tian's face. From Chen Tian's point of view, there was no technique to this punch, and there was no strong chi wave. But for some reason, Chen Tian felt a sense of alertness in his heart. It was as if the opponent's punch contained an infinite amount of power that he couldn't defend against. Chen Tian subconsciously dodged to the side, not wanting to tangle with the man. He wanted to go around him to save Xinyan, but the man seemed to have locked onto him. Chen Tian dodged, and the man's fist curved and swung at him. At this point, Chen Tian couldn't dodge anymore. He had no choice but to raise his hand and meet the attack head-on. Chen Tian, on the other hand, was still hoping that he'd be lucky. He was a practitioner of Iron Hands, and he'd reached Earth Class early phase. How could he not be confident in dealing with someone who didn't seem to have any strength? But when Chen Tian's fist collided with the man's, he knew that he was wrong, and very wrong at that. It looked like a normal punch, but it was immensely powerful. Chen Tian felt like he was an ant trying to shake an elephant, and with just one punch, he was sent flying, coughing up blood. Test Subject 02 could easily kill anyone below Earth Class early phase, and Chen Tian had just reached Earth Class early phase. Naturally, he had no chance of winning against Test Subject 02. Luckily, he was a practitioner of both physical and spiritual arts, and he was stronger than most spiritual or physical practitioners of the same level. He was also an expert in Iron Hands. Using his own fist to fight Test Subject 02 was the only reason he didn't die. Otherwise, he'd be a corpse by now. Even so, Chen Tian still suffered serious internal injuries. He was shocked. Where the hell did these kidnappers come from? How could he be so strong? He didn't look like a master, but he was so strong. Chen Tian couldn't get up after falling to the ground. His opponent's strength was far beyond his imagination. Chen Tian was full of confidence after breaking through and becoming an Earth Class early phase, but just when he wanted to show off his skills, he was dealt a heavy blow. Chen Tian stared at the man, unwilling to give up. He watched as the man walked towards him step by step. Chen Tian's heart was filled with bitterness. He'd underestimated his enemy, and he'd let down Lin Yi's trust. But so what if he didn't underestimate him? Even if he knew that the enemy was strong, could he just sit back and not chase after him? Obviously not, so the result would be the same no matter what. Now, Chen Tian could only place his hope on the purple lightning beast. Oh. The purple lightning beast could feel the strength of its opponent. It didn't expect Chen Tian to be so weak. This also showed how strong the opponent was. The man didn't seem to care about the pressure brought by the purple lightning beast's roar, as if it had nothing to do with him. He punched the beast expressionlessly. As for the purple thunderbolt beast stopping him from killing Chen Tian, the black-clothed man was neither happy nor sad, but his target had changed from Chen Tian to the purple thunderbolt beast. He didn't show much fear towards the purple lightning beast, which was different from Big Scorpion. Of course, Test Subject 02 didn't have his own thoughts anymore. He only listened to Big Scorpion. Big Scorpion's order was to kill Chuntian and the Purple Lightning Beast, so he only needed to listen. The Purple Lightning Tempest Beast could have dodged this blow, but it had thick skin and flesh. In order to test the black-robed man's trump card, it forcefully received the punch. After receiving this punch, the Purple Lightning Tempest Beast's heart sank. However, the speed of the Purple Electric Beast of Wind and Thunder was fast. Taking advantage of the time it took to forcefully receive the punch, it also slapped at the black-robed burly man. The black-clothed man staggered after being slapped by the Purple Electric Tempest Beast, but he stood up as if nothing had happened. In terms of resistance and defense, Professor Ian and his senior and junior brothers had greatly enhanced Test Subject 02. It was incomparable to Test Subject 01, so the Purple Electric Tempest Beast's attack really didn't cause any damage to it. After all, he was now able to receive 10 consecutive attacks from a heaven rank expert. The Purple Lightning Wind Beast's attack power was nothing to him. When it saw the situation before it, the Purple Electric Tempest Beast instantly had the intention to retreat. Chapter 2259. It wouldn't matter if it won, but what if it lost? Looking at Chuntian's face, if it lost, it would lose all its trump cards. It would be even more disadvantageous to the situation. The Purple Lightning Beast was confident that with its speed and thick skin, it could fight against the Earth-class black-clothed man for 100 rounds. But what use would that be? It could only fight and fight, but it was impossible to defeat the man. Wasting time and energy on useless things wasn't a wise choice. With that thought, the Purple Thunderbolt Beast had an idea. It quickly picked up Chuntian and retreated in the opposite direction. Although the Purple Electric Tempest Beast did not have the confidence to win, in terms of escaping speed, it was unparalleled. In the blink of an eye, it had disappeared. Scorpion didn't feel regretful that the Purple Lightning Beast ran away with Chuntian. Instead, he let out a long sigh of relief. He ordered Test Subject Number 2 to get in the car and stepped on the gas pedal, speeding towards the destination he had chosen. Although he felt that the Purple Lightning Beast was afraid of Test Subject Number 2, Scorpion was a little afraid of it. That thing didn't look like a human or a ghost, and it scared him just looking at it. As he drove, Scorpion called Jiangwen. "Scorpion, how is it?" Jiangwen wasn't playing with his phone anymore, anxiously waiting for Scorpion's result. Jiangwen didn't really care if the second subject died or not. The success rate of the 02 drug wasn't that high, but it wasn't a lost product. He didn't really care if Xinyan was saved or not, but he did care if his right-hand man, Scorpion, didn't die. Jiangwen was used to having Scorpion by his side. Scorpion had participated in many of his plans, and it was a walk in the park for him. If Scorpion died and he had to find someone else to replace him, it wouldn't be easy for him to get used to it. Brother 1, the person riding the beast, was severely injured by Test Subject Number 2. The beast chose to retreat after exchanging a few blows with Test Subject Number 2. It ran away with the injured person. Scorpion reported. Ran away. Not bad at all. Jiangwen was overjoyed. Even the Purple Tempest Lightning Beast was no match for his test subject. That was something worth celebrating. One had to know that even those few heaven-ranked old men didn't dare to go head-to-head with the Purple Electric Storm Beast. In the future, if he could get a few more test subjects, wouldn't robbing the hidden families be a piece of cake? He just didn't know if the second test subject could beat Lin Yi. Yeah, seems like Test Subject 02 is quite powerful, Scorpion said. Not bad. Since that's the case, let's stick to the original plan. Take Xinyan to point 3, Jiangwen ordered. Yes. Big Scorpion nodded. However, what Big Scorpion didn't know was that although there seemed to be no one following him, the Purple Electric Tempest Beast had been following him in the dark. The Purple Electric Tempest Beast was an ancient spiritual beast with high spiritual intelligence. After putting Chuntian in a safe place, it flew towards the direction of Scorpion's van, but this time, it was in the dark. The car was on the road, and the Purple Electric Tempest Beast was running on the walls nearby. With Scorpion's senses as a normal person, naturally, he wouldn't be able to sense that the Purple Electric Tempest Beast was still behind him. However, Test Subject Number 2 was strong, but it was just a puppet with no intelligence. It was impossible for it to sense that someone was following it. Big Scorpion had a smooth journey. They arrived at the number 3 stronghold. It was an abandoned farm. The property belonged to the Fire Wolf gang, but in name, it was an unrelated company's property. If the police followed this lead, naturally, they wouldn't find anything. And Jiang Wen had always been careful, and it was impossible for him to make a mistake in the details. This was also the reason why he never got into trouble himself despite doing so many bad things. He never put himself in danger. The only time he did it was when he was blinded by love and hatred. He wanted to cut out Lin Yi's kidney, but he didn't manage to cut out Lin Yi's kidney. Instead, he cut out his own. From then on, Jiang Wen wouldn't do stupid things like this again. Big Scorpion drove the car safely into stronghold number 3. This abandoned farm had Fire Wolf gang's minions waiting for them. Scorpion gave a few orders, and these people cooperated to lock Xinyan in a room by herself. Test subject number 2, on the other hand, was ordered to stand guard at the door. The next thing to do was to wait for the news of Xinyan's kidnapping to spread. After that, Scorpion could call Xinyan's family and blackmail them. The purple thunderbolt beast appeared near farm number 3 without anyone noticing. After confirming that Scorpion had driven the car in and locked Xinyan up, the purple thunderbolt beast turned around and left, leaving a trail of dust in its wake. The purple thunderbolt beast went to Qintian's hiding place and carried him back to the villa. Qintian was heavily injured, but he was a practitioner of both internal and external strength. He was only hit by test subject number 2, so his life wasn't in danger. But his pitiful state made Mengyao, Yushu Hanjingjing, and Han Xiaoqiao jump in fright. Mengyao was counting on Qintian and the purple thunderbolt beast to save Xinyan, but it seemed that not only was she not saved, but Qintian was also heavily injured. Wu Qintian, how are you? Mengyao was worried. A while ago, when Lin Yi was at home, nothing happened, but when Lin Yi left, something happened. Did these people plan this? I'm fine. I won't die yet, but Wang Xinyan. Qintian felt that he'd failed Lin Yi's expectations. He'd been injured saving Tang Yun last time, and now he was injured saving Wang Xinyan again. Do you know who the enemy is? Mengyao felt that things were a little weird. If it was Lin Yi's enemy who did this, then why not her and Shu? Why Wang Xinyan? Even he himself wasn't too sure about the relationship between Lin Yi and Xinyan. There were only rumors going around the school, so why did Xinyan have to be his enemy? Chapter 2260. I'll give Lin Yi a call. Mengyao hesitated and decided to call Lin Yi first. But the call was disconnected. There was no signal in Wulong Heot Mountains, so it was normal that Lin Yi couldn't pick up. You can't get through? Qintian could tell from Mengyao's expression that the call didn't go through. He sighed. There's only one way. What is it? Mengyao asked. Although the one who was kidnapped was Xinyan, Mengyao was still worried. If something happened to her, Lin Yi wouldn't be happy. The hidden house pie. Qintian said. Pai Zhishan from the hidden house pie is boss's follower. If we can get Elder Pai to help, maybe things will turn around. Old Pai, will you help? Mengyao knew what happened at the hidden house summit, but it was still a dangerous thing to do. Qintian was heavily injured, and House Pai wouldn't be able to get involved. We can only try for now. Qintian smiled bitterly. But what surprised Qintian was that when he called Pai Zhishan Zhishan's face was filled with passion. Qintian told Zhishan about the problem and his plan, and Zhishan only hesitated for a moment before saying that he would ask Elder Pai first before calling Qintian. Qintian breathed in relief. At least Zhishan didn't reject him outright. This meant that there was still a chance. Zhishan didn't dare waste any time after getting the call. He went straight to Elder Pai's room and told him what happened in Donghai. Qintian was injured in one hit, and even the purple lightning beast wasn't his match? It seems like the enemy is quite troublesome. Elder Pai frowned. Yeah, but this is a chance for House Pai. Zhishan's heart ached as he thought about his unconscious brother. Although he tried to be nice to Lin Yi didn't accept him that easily. House Pai had no choice but to keep Zhihai's condition and wait for Lin Yi's treatment. Old Man Pai nodded. How could he not know that this was an opportunity? If he helped, then Lin Yi would definitely remember this favor. Not only that, but House Pai and House Han would also be on Lin Yi's side. If they encountered any trouble they couldn't solve, they could ask for help from Lin Yi. Let's go to East Ocean City tonight. Old Man Pai, who had always been cautious, finally made his decision. This was the biggest gamble of his life. This gamble was related to the future of House Pai. If he really did save Xinyan, then House Pai's rise would be just around the corner, along with Lin Yi's rise. But if he lost, not only would Old Man Pai get injured or even die, but his family would also have a huge enemy. But the opportunity was right in front of him, and he had no choice but to choose. All right, Jishan nodded firmly. He felt that the small characters around Lin Yi had all risen to the top. How many of those who went against Lin Yi had a good ending? Weren't Zhang Naipao and Feng Nitian powerful? Both of them were crippled, but Lin Yi was still alive and kicking. Just this point alone was enough for House Pai to gamble. Chun Tian waited patiently after making the call. He wouldn't die for now, but he was worried about House Pai's reply. Meng Yao and Yushu, after sending Han Jingjing and Han Xiaoqiao away, sat on the sofa with their brows furrowed. Yao Yao, do you think this kidnapping has nothing to do with Shield Bro? Maybe it's not targeted at him? Yushu couldn't think of a reason for Xinyan's kidnapping. I'm not sure yet, but I'm curious as well. What's their goal in kidnapping Xinyan? Meng Yao was curious as well. The phone rang, and Chun Tian hurriedly picked it up. He looked at the caller ID and his heart tightened. Master Pai. Although Lin Yi said that Jishan was his follower, and according to seniority, that meant that he was Chun Tian's follower, but he was the one asking for House Pai's help, and Chun Tian didn't dare to be careless. Tian bro, just call me Pai. I've discussed it with Grandpa, and we'll head to East Ocean City tonight. I hope we can make it in time. House Pai had made their decision, and they were betting on Lin Yi. Naturally, they were a lot more polite to Chun Tian. That's great, I'll give you the address. Chun Tian quickly told Jishan the villa's address. After Jishan wrote it down, he said that he would drive there right away. After hanging up, Chun Tian let out a long breath. Everything's settled. Pai Jishan and Elder Pai will rush here tonight. With Elder Pai, a Sky Class Master, there shouldn't be any problems. Phew. Meng Yao breathed out in relief. Things were really strange sometimes. House Pai used to be her enemy, but now, they were Lin Yi's follower. Miss Chu, shouldn't we contact Xinyan's family now? Xinyan's in trouble. We should notify her family. Chun Tian suddenly remembered that they'd neglected something, and that was to contact Xinyan's parents. Perhaps they'd be able to get some clues from them, as well as the reason for the kidnapping. After all, Lin Yi couldn't think of a reason why Xinyan would be kidnapped. Yeah, I forgot. Meng Yao slapped her forehead as she dialed Bai Weitua's number. She wanted him to get Xinyan's parents' contact information. Bai Weitua was a professor at the school, and it was a piece of cake for him to look up Xinyan's information. Chun Tian could go through the Xiao family as well, but House Wu and the Xiao family weren't on good terms right now, and Chun Tian didn't want to cause any trouble. Lingshan didn't think that she'd get kidnapped on her first day. The main character of the kidnapping case had some power and influence in her family, and they were related to the Xiao family. The kidnapped girl's mother was Xiao Qinlin, a member of the Xiao family. Her father, Wang Xiubin, was a medicine merchant in the city. His business wasn't that big, but it was still a star in the area. Their daughter was kidnapped, and naturally Lingshan was under a lot of pressure, especially on her first day as captain. She hadn't gotten used to it yet, and she had to throw herself into work. Chapter 2261. Mr. Wang, Miss Xiao, forgive me for being blunt, but did you guys offend anyone when you were doing business? Lingshan had no choice but to ask about these things in detail, since the kidnappers had called Xiao Qinlin earlier, saying that their daughter had been kidnapped and hanging up the phone. There was no reason, no motive, and no mention of the ransom. Wang Xiubin and Xiao Qinlin were confused. They tried to contact their daughter but couldn't get through to her, so they hurriedly came to report the case. Who did you offend? Qinlin turned to Wang Xiubin after some thought. Wang Xiubin had always been the one in charge of the business, and Qinlin had always been in charge of the logistics. As a result, the chances of her offending anyone was very low, and the main thing was whether Wang Xiubin had offended anyone. I've always been honest with my business. I've never done anything like that, and I work well with my business partners as well. We've been friends for many years, so I don't think we have any enemies. Wang Xiubin shook his head after some thought. Then what about the Xiao family? Ling Shan didn't get any useful clues, so she had no choice but to get straight to the point. The Xiao family? Officer Song, you know about the Xiao family? Qinlin paused. She'd never interacted with Ling Shan before, so naturally she didn't know about her other identity. I'm from House Song, one of the noble houses in the past. Ling Shan didn't hide anything. If this wasn't caused by you and your wife, then could it be caused by the Xiao family? I see. The Xiao family's people are very arrogant, and we don't really have much contact with them. Only this year, when my brother wanted my daughter to marry Xiaolong from House Kong, did we have some contact? Qinlin said after some thought. If we're talking about enemies, then the Xiao family seems to have offended someone called Lin Yi. Lin Yi? Ling Shan shook her head with a bitter smile. He can't be the kidnapper. Ah. Why? Qinlin paused, not expecting Ling Shan to deny the answer right away. She didn't like it. It took her so long to think of an enemy, but Ling Shan said it wasn't. What was the point of thinking? Even if Lin Yi had a grudge against the Xiao family, he'd go after the Xiao family. He wouldn't kidnap your daughter, Ling Shan explained. The Xiao family is nothing to Lin Yi. Ling Shan wanted to continue explaining, but Wang Xubin's phone rang. Ling Shan stopped talking and looked at Wang Xubin. This might be a call from the kidnappers. Ling Shan signaled Lu Wangli, who had been transferred to Donghai with her, to investigate the situation. She turned to Wang Xubin. Pick it up first. If it's the kidnappers, try to buy as much time as possible. Wang Xubin nodded and picked up the phone. He saw a strange phone number, but he didn't think much about it. It was normal for kidnappers to change their phone numbers. He picked up the phone directly. Hello, I'm Wang Xubin. Hello, I'm Wang Xubin. Hello, I'm Wang Xinyan's classmate from university. There's something bad I want to tell you. Mingyao's voice came from the other side of the phone. She didn't beat around the bush. Wang Xinyan was kidnapped at the school gate. What? You're Yinyan's classmate? Yinyan was kidnapped at the school gate? Wang Xubin was startled. He didn't expect it to be Xinyan's classmate. He only received a short call from the kidnappers, but they didn't say where Xinyan was kidnapped. He didn't ask either. Now that he heard that Xinyan's classmate might be a witness, he immediately said, I already know about this. Can you come to the police station? I'm at the police station right now. Can you tell the officers the details of Yinyan's kidnapping? Oh. Okay. Mengyao frowned when she heard that Wang Xubin already knew about Xinyan's kidnapping. It seemed like the kidnappers had contacted Wang Xubin already. This meant that the kidnappers weren't after Lin Yi. But in this case, the matter became even more confusing. If they weren't after Lin Yi, then it should be someone Xinyan or her family had offended. It should be a normal kidnapper, but that wasn't the case. Even Chen Tian couldn't take a single hit from them, and the purple thunderbolt beast couldn't do anything to them either. A kidnapper of this level didn't seem to be a normal person, did he? If they weren't after Lin Yi, then things were even more troublesome. They didn't even have an imaginary enemy. Wu Chintian, are you alright? Let Shu stay and take care of you? Mengyao turned to Chen Tian as she was heading to the police station. I'm fine. I won't die. Chen Tian grinned. When boss comes back, he'll recover instantly. Plus, I still have Grandma's son to feed and drink. You guys go, don't worry about me. Mengyao nodded and quickly left the villa with Yushu. They drove to the police station in Donghai. Ling Shan was surprised to see Mengyao and Yushu in her office. So they were the witnesses Wang Xubin was talking about? Song Fox. Sis, what are you doing here? Yushu was about to call Ling Shan Fox Song, but she remembered that Ling Shan had risked her life to help her and Mengyao escape with Lin Yi. She couldn't bring herself to mock her like she used to. Plus, her brother had moved on, and Ling Shan had fallen in love with Shield Bro. She couldn't say anything more about Ling Shan. I just got transferred here. This is the capital, so it counts as a promotion, Ling Shan said. Where's Lin Yi? Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi went out. There's something they need to take care of, Mengyao said. If Lin Yi was home, the kidnappers wouldn't have gotten away so easily. Chen Tian was in a bad state, but Mengyao believed that if Lin Yi was home, Lin Yi would be able to do something about it. It was a blind trust. Mengyao didn't know why or when it started, but she had this kind of stubborn faith in Lin Yi. Maybe it was because of Shu. Wang Xiubin and Qinlin were a bit weirded. How did these two girls know Lin Yi? And Xingyan seemed to know Lin Yi as well? They had suspected that Lin Yi had kidnapped his daughter, but now it seemed that Lin Yi wasn't home at all. Chapter 2262. It's like this, I invited Xingyan to my house today, and we were supposed to meet at the parking lot after school, but when she got there, a black van without a license plate rushed over and tied her up in the car. Mengyao said as she turned to look at Wang Xiubin and Qinlin, not sure if she should tell them the rest of the story. You can't tell me what happened after that? Lingshan could tell what Mengyao was worried about. What, is there something else? It's nothing much, it's just that Wu Qintian chased after her, but he wasn't a match for the kidnappers, and he didn't even last a single move. Mengyao said with a bitter smile. She didn't tell them about the purple thunderbolt beast, because it wasn't a good idea to tell them about it, and secondly, she didn't want to tell them that the beast had already found the kidnappers' hideout. If Lingshan attacked recklessly, she'd be in danger. The kidnappers' strength was beyond their estimations. They were definitely practitioners. What? Lingshan looked at Mengyao in shock. She knew how strong Wu Qintian was. He was a mystic late-phase peak just like her, and he was a practitioner of both body and spirit. If Wu Qintian couldn't even last a single move, then the kidnappers had to be at least an Earth class. Plus, Wu Qintian's already an Earth class early phase now. Mengyao added. What Earth class early phase? Lingshan took in a cold breath, realizing that she'd underestimated the kidnappers' strength. She didn't think that they'd be able to take down an Earth class early phase in one move. It seemed like this kidnapping wasn't as simple as she'd thought. Yeah, at first, we thought that the kidnappers were after Lin Yi. That's why they kidnapped Xingyan, but now it seems like the kidnappers contacted Xingyan's parents first, so they probably don't have much to do with Lin Yi anymore. Mengyao said. After Lin Yi? Lingshan blinked. Wang Xingyan. She's Lin Yi's girlfriend in school. Mengyao said. It'd be troublesome if she explained things like that, so she just said it like that. Compared to Lingshan, Mengyao was more inclined towards Lin Yi choosing Xingyan. After all, she and Shu weren't too compatible with Lingshan. Lingshan had protected them with all her might, but that was only because of Lin Yi. Ah. Qinlin and Wang Xiubin froze at Mengyao's words. My daughter found a boyfriend at school? She wasn't with House Kang's Kong Xiaolong. The two of them felt like they were in a mess. Before, they had guessed that Lin Yi had kidnapped their daughter, but now their daughter and Lin Yi were actually in a relationship. Could it be that the Kong family was dissatisfied and hired someone to do it? Then could it be someone from the Kong family? Wang Xiubin saw through his wife's thoughts, so he asked. House Kong can't have a master like that. Lingshan shook her head. Plus, it doesn't seem like it. If it was House Kong, then they'd still be targeting Lin Yi. They wouldn't call you guys, so I feel like this kidnapping is more like a normal kidnapping. It's just that the kidnappers are a little special. Let's wait for the kidnappers to call, and see what they want. That's the only way. Wang Xiubin nodded. He was curious why his daughter was in a relationship at school, but he wasn't in the mood to ask about it right now. His daughter's safety was more important, and he could ask her about it after she was out of danger. Mengyao looked at Lingshan, wanting to say something. She wanted to talk about the hidden house pie, but Lingshan didn't care about it. She was just worried that Wang Xiubin and Qinlin would spread the news. House Pai and Lin Yi were friends now, and if the other hidden houses found out, it'd be bad for House Pai. At the very least, they'd have to wait for Lin Yi to come back first. Then we'll go back first. We don't know much, that's all. Mengyao said. All right, contact me if anything happens. Lingshan's observation skills were sharp, and she could tell that Mengyao wanted to say something. Naturally, Lingshan could tell that Mengyao wanted to say something, but maybe it was because Wang Xiubin and Xiao Qinlin were here, so she decided to give Mengyao a call later. Not long after Mengyao and Yushu left, Wang Xiubin received the second call from the kidnappers. Is this Wang Xiubin? On the other side of the phone, a strange voice came through the voice changer. Yes, it's you. How's my daughter? Wang Xiubin could tell that it was the kidnapper from before. Don't worry, Mr. Wang. Your daughter is fine, but that's just for now, Scorpion said. If Mr. Wang doesn't want anything to happen to your daughter, then you better do as I say. What do you want? Wang Xiubin asked. Prepare 10 million and wait for my call. With that, the kidnapper hung up, not giving Wang Xiubin any time to reply. Wait. Wang Xiubin looked at the phone helplessly, shaking his head. This kidnapper didn't play by the rules at all. He wanted to do what Lingshan told him to, but the kidnapper just hung up on him. Wang Xiubin smiled bitterly as he looked at Lingshan. Lingshan, on the other hand, was waiting for Lu Wangli's reply. How is it? Lingshan looked at Lu Wangli, who was walking over. Captain Song, the technicians have already traced the call, but the call was transferred multiple times from overseas. We won't be able to trace it in a short amount of time. Lu Wangli said. Lingshan nodded. It seemed like the kidnapper was a veteran, and he was very familiar with these things. She had guessed that this was the case, but she didn't have much hope. Since the kidnappers were much stronger than an Earth-class early phase, it wouldn't be easy to find out the identity of the kidnapper through the phone. Did you find out where the car went? Lingshan asked. Nope, it's a new MPV, and it was smuggled over. We don't have this model in the country, so we couldn't find any information. The kidnappers took the back alleys, and there were no surveillance cameras. Lu Wangli said. Lingshan had pretty much expected this outcome. She turned to Wang Xiubin. What did the kidnappers say? Chapter 2263. Although 10 million yuan was not a small amount for Wang Su, especially for a businessman like him, his liquidity was limited. After all, most of his money was spent on goods. It was a bit difficult to take out 10 million yuan at once. However, for the safety of his daughter, he would still try his best. Wait here, I'll go make a call. Lingshan felt that she needed to talk to Meng Yao privately. She didn't know when Xinyan became Lin Yi's girlfriend, but since she was Lin Yi's girlfriend, Lin Yi couldn't just ignore it. There had to be a way. Wang Xiubin nodded helplessly. He'd wanted to ask for help from the Xiao family in House Kong. After all, Xinyan was from the Xiao family, the daughter-in-law of House Kong. But after hearing that his daughter had a boyfriend at school, Wang Xiubin gave up on that idea. Although he didn't think that his daughter was that reckless. She was already engaged to House Kong. And yet she was still looking for a boyfriend at school? But the problem now was that it was better to believe it was true than not. If House Kong came and heard that his daughter had made Xiaolong a cuckold, they wouldn't let it go easily. It was better to wait for his daughter to come back and ask her about it. Lingshan, on the other hand, dialed Meng Yao's number as soon as she got into the office. Meng Yao wasn't surprised that Lingshan was calling so soon. Lingshan sis. Yao Yao, is there something else? Lingshan asked. Wu Qintian has contacted the Hidden House Pai, and I heard that old Pai is coming here himself. He's going to take care of this personally. Meng Yao didn't hide anything from Lingshan. 1. Lingshan was from a noble house, and 2. They were familiar with each other. The Hidden House Pai is going to interfere? Lingshan didn't understand what Meng Yao was saying. Xinyan was kidnapped. Why would the Hidden House Pai be here? Weren't they Xiao family's support? And did they have a grudge against Lin Yi? Pai Zhishan from House Pai has already called Lin Yi his boss. Meng Yao didn't know much about the specifics either. Anyway, he's a sky class early phase. It shouldn't be a problem if he's there. That's good. Lingshan had been thinking about asking the Supernatural Investigation Department to get involved after hearing that the guy was a practitioner, but it seemed like there was no need for that now. If even old Pai couldn't handle this, then no one else would be able to. Lingshan hung up and walked out to speak to Wang Xiubin and his wife. I've made the arrangements. If the kidnappers call again, just do what they want and do it half-heartedly. Don't be in a rush to pay the money though. It shouldn't be much of a problem if you drag it out for today. Lingshan didn't mention anything about hiding House Pai, and since Meng Yao didn't mention it, it meant that she didn't want Wang Xiubin and his wife to know. Ah, that's great, thank you so much. Wang Xiubin said, relieved that Lingshan had arranged everything. Lingshan wanted to say that he didn't need to thank her, but decided against it after some thought. Scorpion thought that the job was done, and so he returned to the headquarters. He told 02 to continue watching Xinyan, and there was no need to worry about anything happening with him here. Zhang Wen went straight to the HQ. How was it? Nothing happened, right? Nothing after that, everything went smoothly, Scorpion said. That's good. Zhang Wen nodded. Don't mess with people like Xinyan in the future. Nothing good will come out of anything related to Lin Yi. Yet it was really dangerous this time. Scorpion was scared out of his wits as well. Being chased by a random monster made his legs cramp, and he almost got into an accident. And right as my brain, you shouldn't show your face all the time. It's easy to attract trouble. Do you have anyone else you can trust? Recommend me someone to help you out, Jiang Wen said. You won't be able to handle it yourself when we start robbing noble houses. I have a cousin in my hometown, his nickname is Little Pure. He's pretty smart, maybe we can get him to try? Scorpion said after some thought. Alright, let him come, but don't bring him to me yet. Arrange some things for him to do, and we'll talk about it when he's good. Jiang Wen was still wary of strangers. He knew the guy's background, but he wouldn't give him any important tasks. Alright, I'll get him to handle some unimportant things for now, Scorpion nodded. The night passed uneventfully, and the sun rose in the midst of the tranquility. Ling Shan, Wang Xubin, and Qinlin didn't sleep the entire night, waiting for the kidnapper's call. But other than the previous call, there weren't any other calls. Scorpion was different from the other kidnappers. He was fearless and he knew that it would take some time to prepare the ransom for Wang Xubin. It was useless for him to rush Wang Xubin. On the contrary, it would give Wang Xubin even more pressure if he didn't rush him. So after saying goodbye to Jiang Wen's place, he went back to sleep, not worrying about Xinyan at all. With test subject number 2 guarding her, Xinyan wouldn't be able to escape. Even if someone tried to cause trouble, they'd have to be careful if they could leave alive. The next morning, Elder Pai and Elder Wu arrived at the villa almost at the same time. Elder Wu Gonggao was the first to arrive. He had received good news from Chen Tian, saying that Lin Yi valued him greatly, leveling him up to Earth Class early phase, giving him physical practitioner's body refining elixir, as well as forming a connection with the hidden house Pai. This made Gonggao very happy and surprised. Ever since Chen Tian became friends with Lin Yi, House Wu's power had risen, and Chen Tian's strength had risen from a mere Golden Class early phase to Earth Class early phase. He was several levels higher than the head of House Wu, and he was a practitioner of both inner and outer body, who knew how many times stronger he was now. This time, not only did Chen Tian bring good news of his breakthrough, but he also received the body refining fluid from Lin Yi. Most importantly, he received one for himself. Gonggao felt that the smartest person in the family was still his grandson. Back then, Gonggao was very unhappy that he had made Lin Yi his boss. He felt that it was a disgrace to the family, but now it seemed that Chen Tian was very smart. In the noble house level, Lin Yi was the strongest, and in the hidden house level, there were 2 hidden houses that recognized Lin Yi as their boss. Chapter 2264. There would be a day when House Wu would rise above the 2 hidden houses. Elder Wu felt that the revival of the house depended on Chen Tian. As for Chen Tian, Gonggao didn't suppress him as much as before. This grandson wasn't his biological grandson, but he was his nephew. This was also the reason why he didn't want to train him. Chindi's father wasn't Gonggao's biological son, but the adopted son of Gonggao's younger brother. Gonggao's younger brother died young, and not many people knew about this, including Chindi and Chindi's father. Now Gonggao understood that House Wu was too small of a stage. To Chen Tian, it was just a home, a place to come back often. Chen Tian's goal was to follow Lin Yi and walk to the peak of martial arts, perhaps one day, reaching Sky Class, or even the legendary realm after Sky Class, wouldn't be a dream anymore. But this dream was shattered when he saw his grandson's condition. Gonggao was shocked to see Chen Tian lying on the bed with wounds all over his body. His grandson was already in Earth Class early phase, a practitioner of both internal and external strength. In theory, spiritual and physical practitioners of the same level wouldn't be able to hurt him, but he was injured now. What did this mean? The enemy was so strong that Gonggao could only look up to them. Chen Tian, what's going on? How did it end up like this? Wu Gonggao asked anxiously. The joy he had felt when he first arrived vanished in an instant. Grandpa, I'm fine. Chen Tian smiled bitterly. He didn't think that his grandpa would come at this time of all times. It really wasn't the right timing. He wanted to share his joy with his grandpa, but it turned into pain. The enemy isn't here for me and boss. It's a bit complicated, but now that boss is back, I'm fine. My injuries are nothing. Oh. Gong Gao paused, but he remembered that Chen Tian's injuries were just as bad. Didn't he show up at the noble house meeting full of vigor? It seemed that Lin Yi definitely had a way. Thinking of this, Wu Gonggao's expression softened a lot. Since this enemy isn't coming for you, what's going on? Chen Tian was about to explain when Grandma's son knocked on the door. Mr. Wu, there's an old man and a young man outside the villa, claiming to be from the hidden house Pai. They're looking for you. What do you think? Ah. Quick, invite them to my room. Chen Tian said quickly. Ming Yao and Yushu had already gone to school. Xingyan was kidnapped, but life had to go on. Wu Chintian was waiting for the hidden house Pai to come, so there was no point in staying. As for Lin Yi, he still couldn't get in touch with him. The phone was still filled with the cold notification that the call could not be connected at the moment. Although the villa is different, I still remember what happened the last time I came to Boss Lin Yi's villa. Jishan sighed. In the blink of an eye, I became Boss Lin Yi's follower. Actually the hidden house Pai, should have made the decision back then. Jishan remembered that Lin Yi's follower called Er Gooden, killing Jin Wudi with one punch. He couldn't help but feel emotional. Chen Tian had made the decision to call Er Gooden his boss, indirectly becoming Lin Yi's follower. House Pai, on the other hand, were a few months late. Perhaps it's not too late now. Elder Pai nodded with a serious expression. House Pai had always been a cautious person, and this time, Elder Pai personally brought Jishan out of Malaysia to help Lin Yi. This was the first time in House Pai's history that something like this had happened. Although the Hidden Families Arbitration Association only existed in name, and most of the hidden families were getting restless and sending experts to stir up trouble in the secular world, heaven-rank powerhouses didn't dare to casually set foot in the secular world. After all, there was the restriction of the ancient plane. But this time, House Pai did not come to make trouble and stir up trouble. They came to save people. Even if the Holy Fist Palace knew about it, they would not blame them. What's more, this time House Pai came out, it was equivalent to betting on Lin Yi. In the future, they would share the glory and the loss together. If the ancient sects wanted trouble, it would be Lin Yi. With Lin Yi, House Pai was just a small character. So what if it was the ancient level? The everyday sect and the ancient house phone crippled two of their disciples. What about now? Didn't they still have to suffer in silence? You too, Mr. Wu invites you. Grandma's son walked out of the villa and said to Jishan and Elder Pai, who were deep in thought. Thank you. Elder Pai and Jihai were led into Chen Tian's room by Grandma Sunday. Grandma's son was just a housekeeper, but Elder Pai was very polite, not lacking in manners at all. Brother Wu. Jishan had expected this, but he was still shocked when he saw Chen Tian's condition. Chen Tian was an Earth-class early phase, about the same strength as Jishan, but he was beaten up like this. This meant that the enemy was very strong. I'm sorry, this is the first time we've met. Chen Tian smiled bitterly. But you don't have to worry about me. When boss comes back, I'll be back to normal. Let me introduce you. This is my grandpa. Since Jishan was here, Chen Tian treated him as one of his own. He didn't hide anything from him. In fact, Chen Tian was afraid that Elder Pai would hesitate and not use his full strength. Chen Tian's words were actually hinting to Elder Pai that even if he was injured, it didn't matter. As long as he didn't die, Lin Yi could heal him. Oh, a strange light flashed in Elder Pai's eyes as he thought of something. He felt more confident in his choice this time. Elder Pai was a hidden person, but he knew quite a bit about Lin Yi, especially since he used to be Lin Yi's enemy. He had noticed a strange phenomenon before. Lin Yi was clearly crippled, and it was obvious that he couldn't live anymore. But every time, he would miraculously recover, and his strength would increase instead of decreasing. Chapter 2265. Otherwise, which practitioner would be able to smile with injuries like this? This meant that Lin Yi's medical skills were very good, and he had the ability to heal practitioners. Before, Elder Pai might have doubted it, but now that he saw Chen Tian, he believed it. Elder Wu, I've heard a lot about you. Elder Pai smiled at Gong Gao, cupping his fist in greeting. Grandpa Wu. Jishan said respectfully. You're too kind, Elder Pai, little Pai. Gong Gao was flattered, but remembering that they were all ranked according to the seniority of Lin Yi's follower, he didn't dare be too humble. He didn't want to embarrass Lin Yi. Elder Pai, we don't have much time. I'll treat you guys as my own. Chen Tian didn't want to waste time, and he didn't want to play dumb. Boss's powers are beyond your imaginations. Take me for example, I used to be a pure golden class early phase physical practitioner, but now, I'm an earth class early phase physical practitioner. We're all physical practitioners, and I'm sure you don't need me to tell you the benefits, do you, Elder Pai? Of course. Who doesn't want to be a physical practitioner? Elder Pai nodded in agreement. He'd always wanted to be a spiritual practitioner, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't even step into golden class. He had no choice but to give up. He understood that Chen Tian wouldn't say things without thinking. There must be a deeper meaning behind his words. If we succeed this time, and Wang Xingyan's sis-in-law is saved, I think boss won't let you guys work for nothing. You two will at least become mystic late-phase peak spiritual practitioners. Chen Tian threw out a tempting offer. Although Lin Yi said that House Pai needed his help, this was a dangerous mission. And without money, it was hard to say if Elder Pai would give his all. What if he backed out at the critical moment? And so, Chen Tian said all the benefits. Wu Gonggao sat quietly at the side and listened to his grandson's words. He couldn't help but sigh. His grandson had really changed. Not only had his strength increased, but he had also become more tactful. As a physical cultivator, Wu Gonggao knew very well that no one could reject this bargaining chip. As expected, Old Pai and Pai Zhishan looked at each other after Chen Tian's words, and their faces changed drastically. They became heated and frenzied. They came here to help Lin Yi in his hour of need, but they didn't expect Chen Tian to give them such a big piece of cake. This was indeed a huge temptation to them. They finally understood why Chen Tian had leveled up so quickly, and they understood why that trash Han Xiaopa had become an Earth-class early phase just before the Hidden House Summit. So this was all thanks to Lin Yi. If that was the case, then the returns would far exceed their expectations. They were planning to just heal Zhihai's injuries, but now, no wonder Chen Tian was so loyal, no wonder the Hidden House Han was so fawning over Lin Yi. This time, the Hidden House Pai wouldn't let go of this chance. At first, Pai Zhishan recognized Lin Yi as his boss. It was for his own benefit, but now he was sincere. Don't worry, Wu Bro. Grandpa and I will do our best to save Boss Woman, Pai Zhishan said with a fist salute. All right, I'll leave it to you then. Chen Tian said. Let the purple thunderbolt beast take you there. It knows where Xingyan is locked up, but the guards there are very strong, so it's up to you, Elder Pai. All right. Elder Pai agreed straightforwardly. They weren't surprised that the purple thunderbolt beast was with Lin Yi, since it was with Lin Yi back then. Right, that opponent, he's strong, but I feel like he's not smart enough, and his reflexes are really bad. If you fight him, Old Pai, it's best not to fight him head-on, avoiding his attacks and attacking him. I think it'll work. Chen Tian recalled the fight yesterday and came up with this conclusion, telling it to Old Pai in case he made a mistake. But this kidnapper gave him a familiar feeling, as if he'd seen him somewhere before, but he couldn't remember. Oh, I'll be careful. Old Pai nodded and said. But when Pai Zhishan and Elder Pai saw the purple thunderbolt beast, they froze. Wasn't this guy a yellow-class spirit beast? When did it become a mystic? And a mystic late-phase peak at that? Could it be that Lin Yi could not only level up people, but also spirit beasts? What kind of scary concept was that? Old Pai and Pai Zhishan looked at each other again. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. Hidden House Han. It wasn't luck that they were able to stand out in the Hidden House Summit. Elder Pai shook his head, a bitter smile on his face. This time, we've all been dragged into this together. This Lin Yi is probably toying with us. Yeah, it's all thanks to Zhihai, or else we wouldn't have been able to find such a strong boss, Zhishan nodded. But it's not too late now. Our Hidden House Pai still has a chance. The purple thunderbolt beast didn't have any complaints about carrying Zhishan and Elder Pai on its back. It was a strong ancient spirit beast, but this was a critical time. It had to save its contracted master's woman, the mistress. How could it not be proactive? A roar. The purple thunderbolt beast came to the abandoned farm and roared softly, indicating that it had arrived. Elder Pai and Pai Jishan got off the purple thunderbolt beast. This was the first time they felt the speed of the wind. From the villa to this place, it only took a blink of an eye. Jishan, follow behind me later on the purple thunderbolt beast. I'll deal with that master, and you and the purple thunderbolt beast will go save Miss Wang. If that master attacks you, get on the purple thunderbolt beast and run, don't fight him head on. Elder Pai sighed and came up with a plan. Okay, I understand. Jishan didn't try to show off. Chen Tian was already heavily injured. How could he fight the enemy head on? Chapter 2266. But what surprised them was that there was no one guarding the entrance, and there didn't seem to be any sounds coming from inside. It was eerily quiet. Don't tell me they moved to another location? Pai Jishan looked at the empty and quiet farm and asked curiously. Let's keep looking. Elder Pai said without batting an eyelid. The two walked deeper into the farm, but as soon as they turned the corner, they stopped. Because they saw a person, a burly man in black sitting at the door of a bungalow. He was just sitting there with a golden saber. This person, upon seeing Jishan and Elder Pai, suddenly had a flash of light in his lifeless eyes. He stood up, and without a word, he threw a punch at Jishan. Jishan received his grandpa's orders, and didn't try to be brave. He patted the purple lightning beast, dodging the man's attack. From what Pai Jishan could tell, the person in the house behind the black-clothed man should be Wang Xinyan. He'd leave the black-clothed man to his grandpa, and Pai Jishan and the purple thunderbolt beast quickly made their way to the door. The man saw Jishan disappear, but he didn't chase after him. Instead, he turned his fist and threw a punch at Elder Pai. Elder Pai was already wary of the black-clothed man, and this guy changed his moves at the last minute. It was impossible for him to hit Elder Pai. Elder Pai easily circled to the black-clothed man's side, and with a punch, the black-clothed man staggered and spat out a mouthful of blood. Test Subject 02 could, in theory, take 10 hits from a Sky-class early phase master, but they were both Sky-class early phase masters, and their strengths weren't the same. Elder Pai was an expert in fists, and his punches were powerful, but his other skills weren't as good. But this man took a punch from Elder Pai head-on, and it was much stronger than a normal Sky-class early phase master's punch. He didn't have any chi to protect his body, and so he spat out a mouthful of blood, suffering serious internal injuries. Of course, the black-clothed man was just a puppet. He didn't have his own thoughts and didn't know pain. Although Old Man Pai's punch caused great damage to him, he didn't seem to feel it at all. After being hit, he continued to punch Old Man Pai. Bam! Old Pai couldn't dodge in time, and got punched by the man in black. Oofed! Elder Pai's blood was boiling, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His internal organs were also injured. It wasn't that Elder Pai was careless, it was just that he didn't expect his opponent to be so unpredictable. Usually, in a duel between masters, when one side was hit, he or she would have to dodge first to recuperate. Otherwise, the injury would be more severe, unless it was a fight to the death. But at the heaven rank, unless it was a life and death enmity, who would truly go all out? That was why Old Pai didn't expect the man in black to be able to retaliate after taking a punch from him. However, Old Pai was also beaten up. He punched again, directly hitting the man in black's head. This time, the man in black's injury was more severe. He staggered and fell, but it gave Old Pai enough time to retreat. Old Pai also saw through the man in black's style. He was good at punching and kicking, but he was all brawn and no brains. He was a complete mess. Moreover, this person gave Old Pai a very strange feeling. There was an indescribable sense of déjà vu. The black-clothed man fell down, and Elder Pai naturally wouldn't let him go. He punched him again, breaking both of his arms. Then he wanted to break both of his legs before he could get up. But what Elder Pai didn't expect was that the black-clothed man didn't even care about his shoulder blades being broken. He kicked Elder Pai, sending him flying away. This kind of situation where he wasn't afraid of pain, and could still fight back as if nothing happened. Old Pai had never heard of such a situation before. Wasn't this too strange? In this kind of situation, if it was someone else, they would most likely scream and dodge first. But this person in front of him was completely different. What happened next made Old Pai even more confused. After the man in black got up from the ground, he swung his arms that he couldn't lift anymore, and rushed towards Old Pai. If his arms couldn't do it, he could use his legs. When he got close to Old Pai, the man in black lifted his leg and kicked. Old Pai was speechless. How was this a master? He was simply a member of a suicide squad. He really dared to die. However, cursing was just cursing. Old Man Pai endured the internal injury from the kick and punched the man in black's leg with his fist. Old Pai only took a punch and a kick, but his injuries weren't light. He was a sky class early phase, but he didn't have chi to protect his body, and he didn't practice Golden Bell Shield, either. His defense was stronger than Qintian's, but he wasn't as strong as a sky class of the same level. And so this injury greatly reduced his mobility. He couldn't dodge, so he could only use his fist to meet the man's attack head-on. Old Pai used all the strength in his body for this punch. He only hoped that he could finish off the man in front of him as soon as possible, even if he got hurt. Boom! Both sides clashed fiercely. One side charged forward without fear of death, while the other side used all of his trump cards. When the two collided, although there was no earth-shattering explosion of energy that came from a battle between internal martial arts masters, it still brought about a thunderous sound. The man in black was sent flying, and Old Pai also took a few steps back before falling on his butt. The man's leg wasn't hard, and it wasn't the kind of physical practitioner who trained their body to the extreme. It was just a normal kick, and even Old Pai heard the sound of the man's bones breaking. He couldn't understand why the man in black had so much strength, and it didn't seem like he was in any pain at all. Did the injury have nothing to do with him? Old Pai's fist wasn't crippled, but the recoil still damaged his meridians. Luckily, he was a physical practitioner, and the damage to his meridians wasn't that big of an impact. But if he didn't treat it, it would affect his speed and strength in the future. Chapter 2267. The black-clothed man struggled on the ground. Although Old Pai was injured, he wouldn't let go of this opportunity to beat the man up. He went up and punched the man's other leg, causing him to lose his ability to attack. At the same time, Pai Jishan rode on the purple electric tempest beast and arrived at the door of the bungalow. Although the bungalow had a lock, it was useless to Pai Jishan. With one punch, the lock broke, and he pushed the door open. Xingyan's mouth was sealed, and she was tied to the stool. She was shocked by the sudden turn of events, and looked at the stranger in front of her in fear. She hadn't seen Pai Jishan before, and she thought that he was with the kidnappers, trying to harm her. But Pai Jishan opened his mouth, and that calmed Xingyan's heart down instantly. Sister-in-law, I'm Boss Lin Yi's follower, Pai Jishan. I'm here to save you, Pai Jishan said. Although Pai Jishan's way of addressing her made Xingyan blush, she couldn't care less at a time like this. As for the rope on Xingyan's body, Pai Jishan broke it with a light tug, and Xingyan tore off the seal on her mouth. Thank you. Don't say so much. We're supposed to help our boss. Pai Jishan waved his hand. Since he had decided that Lin Yi was their boss, he wouldn't be arrogant anymore. He pointed at the purple lightning beast. You ride the beast first, I'll go see my grandpa. All right. Xingyan nodded. She recognized the purple thunderbolt beast. That day, Qintian rode it to chase after her. Xingyan saw it clearly from the car, but Qintian and the purple thunderbolt beast weren't a match for the black-clothed man. And that worried her a little. She didn't think that one day later, Lin Yi's stronger man would come to save her. Pai Jishan came out of the house, and saw that his grandpa was injured, but the black-clothed man was taken care of. He let out a sigh of relief. Grandpa, are you all right? I'm fine, let's leave this place. The enemy is too strange. Elder Pai frowned. We can't stay here for long. If more enemies like this come, we'll die here. Pai Jishan nodded. He was very interested in finding the mastermind, but since Elder Pai said so, it meant that the enemy was too strong. It was best to leave as soon as possible. Since the black-clothed man was disabled, it'd be better to bring him back to the police for investigation. He shouldn't get himself involved. Saving Xingyan was the most important thing right now. The purple electric tempest beast's body was relatively large, so it was not too much to carry 4 people. It was also very spacious. Soon, the purple electric tempest beast returned to the villa. Qintian didn't expect Old Pai to finish the fight so quickly. He was about to praise him when he saw the look on Old Pai's face. He knew that he was heavily injured as well. This was quite a coincidence. If it was an ordinary heaven rank initial phase internal chi master, he might not have been able to deal with test subject number 2 so easily. After all, this guy could withstand 10 full blows from a heaven rank initial phase internal chi master. 10 strikes all at once wasn't that easy. But Elder Pai was a physical practitioner, and he was an expert in punches. His punches were very strong, and even if they weren't as strong as Air Gooden, they were still strong enough to split a mountain. He took care of the second test subject with just a few punches. But the price he paid was quite high. If it was a sky-class early-phase spiritual practitioner, they wouldn't be so heavily injured. After all, spiritual practitioners had chi protection, but Elder Pai didn't. When Zhang Wen was creating the test subject, he had neglected the factor of physical practitioners. Otherwise, things wouldn't have been so easy to solve. My grandpa's injured too. Jishan smiled bitterly. We defeated the enemy and captured him, but it's not a complete victory. It's a Pyrrhic victory. It's fine, as long as he's not dead, boss will find a way. Chen Tian saw that Pai Jishan and Elder Pai came back alive, so he didn't mind anymore. He grinned. Why don't you guys stay here and wait for boss to come back? If that's the case, then we'll be troubling you. Jishan wanted to do that. 1. Elder Pai needed to rest, and 2. He could bring Jihai over to wait for Linny to come back. Now that House Pai had saved his wife, he couldn't just keep pushing Jihai away, could he? Right, Wu, what do we do with the kidnappers? Elder Pai asked. That. Let the police. It's not good to tell the public about what you did, Chen Tian said. All right. Old Pai nodded. This was the safest way to hide the fact that House Pai's interference in the common world had already violated the agreement between the Hidden House Council and the Ancient Society. While it was done without anyone noticing, it was still better to keep a low profile. Thank you. Thank you, Xinyan said, finally able to relax after seeing Chen Tian in Mingyao's villa. She quickly thanked Pai Jishan and Elder Pai for saving her. You're welcome. Jishan waved his hand. Then I'll have to trouble you to call the police, Tian bro. I'll help Grandpa get some rest first. I won't be showing myself in a bit. All right. Chen Tian nodded, asking Grandma-san to prepare a room for Jishan and Elder Pai. After that, Chen Tian noticed that Xinyan was still standing there. Sister-in-law, have a seat. Xinyan was a little embarrassed at how Chen Tian addressed her, but it wasn't a good time to argue about it. Seeing that Xinyan didn't like to talk, Chen Tian didn't say much and called Lingshan. Wu Chen Tian. Lingshan had Chen Tian's number, so she knew it was him the moment she picked up. Yes, it's me. Xinyan's been saved, and the kidnappers have been caught, but House Pai is involved, so it's better to keep a low profile. Chen Tian said. So bring some people here to take them away, and it'll be your credit? Chapter 2268. Lingshan, however, didn't decline the offer. She'd just been transferred to Donghai, and if she wanted to establish herself here, she'd have to show some impressive achievements. Wu Chintian, on the other hand, knew how to pick the right time. All right, I'll bring my men over right away. Why don't you do it yourself? Chintian reminded. It's fine, it's my subordinate from Songshan, Lu Wangli. It'll be fine, Lingshan said. Lu Wangli knew about Lingshan's relationship with Lin Yi, and he'd been promoted to vice captain with Lingshan this time. He'd been a squadron captain before after all. All right. Chintian nodded. After calling Lingshan, Chintian called the miss, telling her that Xinyan was safe and that there was no need to worry. The miss and Shu breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed like House Pai was reliable after all. But at the same time, Scorpion, who went to the abandoned farm to deliver food, was shocked. Test subject 02 was gone, and so was Xinyan. There were traces of a fight, and there were traces of blood as well. The lock of the door had been broken with brute force, and the rope binding Xinyan had been broken with brute force as well. This proved that there had been a fierce fight here, but test subject 02 wasn't a match for them. She was nowhere to be found. This situation made Scorpion jump, but he didn't dare stay any longer. He knew how strong the test subject was. Even Wu Chintian and the purple thunderbolt beast weren't a match for him. The person who could defeat him and save Xinyan was definitely not an ordinary person. Scorpion wasn't a practitioner, but even if he was, he wouldn't dare stay any longer. He didn't want that person to come back and cause trouble for him. Scorpion dialed Jiang Wen's number as he drove away. Scorpion, how is it? Jiang Wen didn't know that something had happened. When bro, it's bad. Xinyan was rescued, and test subject 02 is nowhere to be found. But there are signs of a fight and blood. Scorpion said urgently. What? Jiang Wen jumped in shock. You saved him? Then where are you? Come back, don't stay. I've already left, Scorpion said. I wouldn't dare stay in a situation like this. It's good that you're back. Jiang Wen sighed. He didn't expect things to turn out this way. But Linny wasn't home, so who saved Xinyan? Who could be a match for test subject 02? Lingshan was about to call for a meeting to discuss the kidnapping when she received Qintian's call. She quickly brought Lu Wangli to Lin Yi's villa. This was the first time Lingshan had come to Lin Yi's villa in Donghai, and Lu Wangli had gotten to know what had happened along the way. Lin Yi was the one who'd done it again? This time, Lin Yi wasn't here, and Lin Yi wasn't here. Lu Wangli didn't say much, however, and went straight to the police car with test subject number 2. Xinyan and Lingshan, on the other hand, got into the other car and drove back to the police station. Wang Zibin and Qinlin, naturally, thanked Lingshan profusely after seeing their daughter return safely. Lingshan was a little embarrassed, but Chen Tian had told her not to tell anyone about House Pie, so Xinyan didn't say much, only saying that Lingshan was the one who saved her. In the resting room, Wang Zibin and Qinlin talked to their daughter, while Lingshan sent the suspect to the hospital with the other officers. They were waiting for him to wake up and give his statement. Yin, I heard, you found a boyfriend at school? After asking about Yin's well-being, Xiao Qinlin asked the question she was most concerned about. I. Xinyan's face changed as she blushed. She didn't expect her mother to ask this. Qinlin saw the change in her daughter's face, and her expression changed as well. So it's true. I'm not really a boyfriend. I'm just a classmate I'm pretty close with. Xinyan was a little embarrassed, as if she'd been caught doing something bad. Just a classmate you're pretty close with? Qinlin didn't believe her. There was a girl called Mengyao who came. Did she say that? Xinyan didn't expect Mengyao to be the one to leak this out. She pursed her lips helplessly, not knowing how to explain herself. Yin, you're engaged. You're different from other people. If House Kong finds out, we won't be able to explain ourselves. Qinlin said worriedly, remembering how she'd been locked up by the Xiao family brothers, and how they'd used Wang Zibin's company as a threat. All right, don't ask anymore. Wang Zibin frowned and cut Qinlin off. I didn't think much of that House Kang's kid. If Yin has her own choice, then I'll give up the company. I've thought it through, and I've had enough. Especially with the kidnapping this time. The recovery of my lost daughter, it made me understand something. Nothing is more important than my daughter. I can give up on the company, and I can take out the 10 million that the kidnappers want with my entire fortune. So let's not force Yin too much. It's fine as long as she likes it. But my family and House Kong, I'm afraid that they'll do something out of line. They're practitioners, after all, and they have powerful backers behind them. Qinlin didn't have a choice. She was afraid that they'd do something out of line if she rejected the engagement. That's... Wang Zibin paused as he thought of the crux of the matter. He couldn't help but sigh, lost in thought. Mom, Dad, don't argue. I know what I'm doing. Xinyan sighed helplessly as she looked at her parents' troubled expressions. The atmosphere in the resting room became heavy and strange. Wang Zibin and Qinlin looked at their daughter, sighing with guilt. Qinlin, especially, wasn't happy with what her brothers were doing, but there was nothing she could do. Xinyan's heart was a mess. Her parents had found out about her and Lin Yi. After all, what should she do? Should she let nature take its course, or should she draw a line with Lin Yi? But Xinyan knew that she and Lin Yi weren't taking their relationship any further, and she didn't want to change her lifestyle for a random fiancé. Plus, she didn't like this fiancé at all. Xinyan couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. Chapter 2269. Lingshan's crime-solving skills surprised her new colleagues. They had no clue at all about this kidnapping case, but Lingshan had gone out and not only did she rescue the hostages, she'd even caught the kidnappers. The kidnappers looked a little pitiful, but he deserved what he got. What depressed them was that the kidnappers' eyes were lifeless, and he didn't say anything. It was as if he didn't understand her at all. Lingshan had thought that he'd been beaten senseless by Old Pai, but after the doctor's examination, that wasn't the case. An unknown drug had been injected into the kidnapper's body, and the kidnapper's brain had been destroyed as well. To put it bluntly, this person was an idiot. If it weren't for the fact that he'd woken up with a cast on his arms and legs, and had broken the metal bed with one punch, everyone would have suspected that he was the kidnapper. But this person's strength and destructive power made people believe in how scary he was. This familiar situation reminded Lingshan of a case in Songshan, the bank robbery case with the fake Lin Yi. Back then, the fake Lin Yi was like this as well. Lingshan didn't dare tarry, and quickly reported it to Huaijuan. Donghai's situation came to an end for now. In the middle of the Wulonghout Mountains, Lin Yi, Sun Jingyi, and Skybolt Pig were caught in a huge net that fell from the sky. Not only did the net tighten rapidly, not giving Lin Yi any chance to escape, but they were also hung up in the air. And so Lin Yi, Sun Jingyi, and Skybolt Pig were all suspended in the air. Lin Yi subconsciously wanted to use his hands to tear the net apart, but it was extremely sturdy, and Lin Yi couldn't break it with his bare hands at all. In the next moment, Lin Yi saw who they were, but these couldn't be considered people. They were giant spiders. Speaking of spiders, many people would associate it with a more terrifying appearance. However, these spiders didn't look scary. Instead, they were somewhat cute. They were like the chibi version of spiders in comics. The color patterns on their bodies were also very beautiful. It was similar to the Skybolt Pig. Although the Skybolt Pig was a pig, it didn't look as stupid as a pig. Instead, it looked very cute. Needless to say, Lin Yi knew that these spiders were probably some kind of ancient spiritual beasts. Maybe they were ancient spiders. In a place like the Wulonghout mountain range with abundant spiritual energy, it was normal for there to be more ancient spiritual beasts. If it was an ordinary mountain range, there probably wouldn't be a single ancient spiritual beast. You guys are ancient spiritual beasts, right? Why did you capture us? After Lin Yi roughly confirmed the identity of these spiders, he didn't show any hostility. Instead, he used a very friendly tone to talk to them. This was because Lin Yi knew that they should be able to understand his words. As expected, after the spiders heard Lin Yi's words, they looked at each other, but none of them answered Lin Yi's words. Perhaps it was because they were too weak to speak the human language, or perhaps they could speak but didn't want to say it. However, the first possibility was more likely. Because Lin Yi took a look, he realized that there were two mystic spiders, and the rest were golden spiders. They shouldn't be able to speak the human language. These spiders ignored Lin Yi. Instead, they dragged Lin Yi, Sun Jingyi, and the Skybolt Pig's big net, and quickly moved towards a direction. Lin Yi looked at the Skybolt Pig, and signaled it to communicate with these spiders. Squeak, squeak. The Skybolt Pig repeated what Lin Yi said before in the spiritual beast language. At first, these spiders didn't pay attention to the Skybolt Pig. However, when they suddenly heard the Skybolt Pig speaking the spiritual beast language, one of the spiders looked at the Skybolt Pig in the big net in surprise. However, it didn't reply and continued to move forward with the big net. Seeing that no spiders replied to it, the Skybolt Pig felt a little helpless. He looked at Lin Yi and shook his head. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. It seemed that these spiders were most likely the big fire lion's enemies. But why did these spiders want to capture him? Could it be that they knew that he was friends with the big fire lions? Or was it because he accidentally trespassed into their territory? If it was the latter, then it should be easier to resolve. These spiders were probably trying to capture them back to their nest. As Lin Yi expected, these spiders brought Lin Yi and the others to a naturally formed cave. There were many spider spiritual beasts patrolling the vicinity of the cave. Lin Yi took a look and saw that they were around the yellow rank. There were also some mystic rank, but only a few of them. However, there was a big spider inside the cave that attracted Lin Yi's attention. A heaven rank spiritual beast was similar to the big fire lion. Sure enough, if they weren't of the same rank, how could they be opponents? Since it was a heaven rank spiritual beast, it should be able to speak the human language just like the big fire lion. Therefore, Lin Yi didn't need the Skybolt Pig to translate for him. The big net was opened, and Lin Yi and the others were placed on the ground. Lin Yi then climbed out of the big net. He looked a little embarrassed, But facing a heaven-rank spiritual beast clan, there was nothing to be ashamed of. You are the leader of these spiritual beasts, right? I know you can understand me and communicate with me. Lin Yi didn't panic. He calmly stood up and looked at the biggest heaven-rank spider. What is your purpose for coming to my territory? A human cultivator. The heaven-rank spider didn't answer Lin Yi's question. Instead, it directly asked a question. But this also indirectly answered Lin Yi's question, which was that it could speak the human language. Entered by mistake. Even if I said so, you wouldn't believe me. Lin Yi saw the ridicule in the heaven-rank spider's eyes and immediately changed his tone. He simply told the truth. I was avoiding the pursuit of my enemies and had no choice but to take this path down the mountain. I can't take the normal path anymore. How can I believe you? The heaven-rank spider asked after hearing Lin Yi's words. With our strength. Would you believe me if I said that we came to look for trouble? Lin Yi smiled bitterly and shrugged his shoulders. Normally, I wouldn't believe you, but now is a special time. I can't help but doubt your purpose for coming here. The heaven-rank spider said. Moreover, I smell a familiar aura from your body. What is your relationship with the Fire Lion clan? Chapter 2270. However, on the surface, Lin Yi still maintained his composure and said, my previous identity was that of an adventurer. I went up the mountain with the Tagan family to capture the small fire lions, but there were some problems, and the capture of the small fire lions was only a pretense. I had other purposes for going up the mountain, so I had a conflict with the Tagan family. Lin Yi was purely asking and not answering, but it also showed that he had fought with the Fire Lion clan, so it was normal for him to have the aura of the fire lions on his body. You captured the small fire lions? Then why would they give you their most important flowing fire god bullets? The heaven-rank spider looked at Lin Yi with ridicule. Human cultivator, you are very dishonest. Since that's the case, I can only lock you up first. Flowing fire god bullets. Lin Yi didn't expect that the heaven-rank spider would actually discover that he had the flowing fire god bullets on him. This made him very shocked. Wasn't this heaven-rank spider a bit too powerful? That's a weapon used by the Fire Lion clan to fight against us. It can break our inescapable net. How could I not be familiar with that kind of thing when you carry it on you? The heaven-rank spider's voice was somewhat cold. Tell the truth or be locked up. You can choose for yourself. However, after being locked up by us, you might not think of you for 8 to 10 years. Whether you can persevere for that long will depend on your luck. Alright, since that's the case, I'll be straightforward. Lin Yi sighed. He originally guessed that the Spider Spirit Beast clan was definitely the Fire Lion clan's enemy, so he didn't intend to reveal his relationship with the Fire Lion clan to avoid unnecessary trouble. But now, it seemed that the heaven-rank spider wasn't that easy to deceive. He had no choice but to tell the truth. Lin Yi could only tell the truth. The reason why I didn't say it before was because I had indeed intruded into your territory by mistake. I didn't want to disturb you. I just wanted to borrow the way down the mountain. If my guess is correct, you are the Fire Lion clan's enemy in the Wulong Haut mountain range, right? Not bad. The heaven-rank spider straightforwardly admitted. I'm indeed related to the Fire Lion clan, but it's like this. After saying that, Lin Yi told the heaven-rank spider about the purpose of his trip, how he joined the Tagan family's adventurer guild to participate in the mission, how he became enemies with the Tagan dragon, how he secretly helped the small Fire Lion clan, how he became friends with the Fire Lion clan, how he went up the mountain to obtain a treasure, how he was attacked by the Tagan family's experts, and how he was saved by the heaven-rank strange man. Naturally, Lin Yi didn't mention that he was healing the small lion and increasing its strength. Lin Yi couldn't say for the time being, especially since the heaven-rank spider and the Flame Lion clan were enemies. If Lin Yi mentioned it, the heaven-rank spider might do something out of anger. That heaven-rank old man is your master? The heaven-rank spider asked in a strange tone. You are also related to that sect on the mountain? Master, it could be considered a mistake, but we are indeed related to that sect, Lin Yi said. You don't seem to be lying, but I can't let you go now, the heaven-rank spider said. Although I have some friendship with your master, my son is missing. I suspect that this matter was done by the Fire Lion clan, So I want to use you as a bargaining chip to exchange for my son's safety with the Fire Lion clan. Your son? Captured by the Fire Lion clan? When did this happen? Linny suddenly froze. About 10 days ago. The heaven-rank spider didn't hide it. Then it definitely couldn't have been done by them. Linny said. It hasn't even been 10 days since I left the Fire Lion clan's lair. I haven't seen your son. Perhaps he is imprisoned in a certain place. The heaven-rank spider hesitated for a bit before saying, that shouldn't be the case. I don't think so. Why don't you tell me about your son? There might be some clues. Linny said. That's fine. The heaven-rank spider wasn't afraid of Linny stirring up trouble in its territory. It's like this. 10 days ago, my son went to the other side of the Wulong Haut mountain range to gather a natural treasure. That place isn't our territory or the Fire Lion clan's, it's only a public area. That place produces some natural treasures every year, but the natural treasure my son gathered is only useful to our spider clan. But the Fire Lion clan also knows when it matures, and my son still hasn't returned. Moreover, the subordinates I sent to look for him haven't found any clues, so I can't help but suspect that the Fire Lion clan did this to him. Oh? Linny frowned. If what the heaven-rank spider said was true, then the suspect might really be the Fire Lion clan. But Linny felt that it should be the Fire Lion clan, or else Linny wouldn't have known about it. Just as Linny was pondering with a frown, wondering how to make the spiders let them off, the lightning pig suddenly shouted, Lightning pig! Linny lowered his head to look at the lightning pig, but the lightning pig's words were clearly not directed at Linny, but rather at the heaven-rank spider. Oh, little thing. Why are you asking if there are any more heavenly treasures? The heaven-rank spider doubtfully looked at the lightning pig. Hearing the heaven-rank spider's explanation, Linny slightly froze, but he instantly thought of something and said, the lightning pig is also an ancient spirit beast, but its ability is to search for treasures. I wonder if you have heard of this kind of spirit beast? Oh, search for treasures? This kind of spirit beast really exists? The heaven-ranked spider looked at the skybolt pig in shock, but when it saw the pig nodding its head proudly, it immediately understood what the skybolt pig meant. If you have the same kind of treasure, you can find my son in the same way? The lightning pig nodded, but it continued to explain with a GG sound. It meant that it could only find this kind of heavenly treasure, but if its son wasn't with the heavenly treasure, then it would be powerless. That's already very amazing. After saying that, the heaven-rank spider gave a few instructions to its subordinates, and they immediately left. Not long after, they returned with a small box,